Chapter 284. Zhou Xian laughed. Wu Dao, you must be joking. My surname is Zhou. Dao Yu is really capable. I'm not your match. Wang Daoyuan replied, fellow Daoist Zhou is making fun of me. I've wasted nearly 200 years, and I'm only at the 4th level of foundation establishment. I am not young and my cultivation is not worth mentioning. Although the half-demon woman and Fu Cheng could tell that there was a hidden meaning in their words, their strength and knowledge were limited. They did not understand what the two were talking about and did not realize that they were testing each other. Zhou Xian cupped his hands and said, I wanted to hand over some things in the shop to Wu Daoyu, but there is no need for that now. Wu Daoyu and I are like-minded, so I will give Daoyu some of my worldly possessions. It is a pity that Daoyu is too scheming. Wang Daoyuan returned the gesture and said, then I have to thank Daoyu for your gift. Daoyu and I hit it off. What a pity! Why does a good person like you have such a mouth? Hearing this, Zhou Xian laughed. I have always been talkative and said something I should not have said. Dao, you wouldn't want me to stay, would you? Wang Daoyuan laughed. I do not have the ability to keep Dao Yu here. Furthermore, I am not a fool. I will not risk my life for such a small matter. Previously, the two of them had tested each other and neither of them was confident of winning. Zhou Xian only said a few words and did not mean any harm. Wang Daoyuan would not kill anyone for such a small matter. Furthermore, this was someone from the Archaic Mysteries sect. Even if he killed Zhou Xian, he would not be able to hide it from the fortune-tellers of the Archaic Mysteries sect. If he angered the Archaic Mysteries sect, the Wang family's wealth would be gone with a breath. Zhou Xian bid farewell and left. He casually gave Fu Cheng more than 20 spiritual stones and said, help me contact a channel that provides spiritual charcoal and level 2 smithing materials. You will be rewarded. Fu Cheng took the spirit stones and ran away. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands towards the half-demoness and said, Daoyu Bai, I would like to rent this shop. How much is the rent? The half-demon woman smiled and said, this shop can be rented or given away for free. Which one would Wu Daoyu like? Wang Daoyuan naturally knew what she meant. As long as he agreed to marry into the White Fox tribe, the shop would be given to him for free. An ordinary smithing shop would at most cost 10,000 spirit stones, but he could easily sell a second-tier high-grade spirit artifact for more than that. With the current status of the Wang clan, as well as his position in the clan, as long as he said the word, all the daughters of the clan heads would rush to his door. He didn't even want to marry a human woman, let alone a half-demon. Not to mention a half-demon with poor cultivation talent. Wang Daoyuan replied, I appreciate Daoyu's good intentions, but I still choose to rent a shop. The half-demon woman smiled and said, generally speaking, a shop like this would cost 200 to 300 spirit stones a year. As long as Wu Daoyu can agree to one of my conditions, the rent will be waived. Wang Daoyuan hurriedly rejected, don't. I can waive the conditions and double the rent will do. If it's okay, I'll rent it. If not, I'll change to another shop. The half-demon woman said coquettishly, Daoyu is so heartless. Are the women of my White Fox tribe really so unbearable? Wang Daoyuan couldn't be bothered with her and turned to leave. The half-demon woman immediately urged him to stay. Wu Dao, listen to my conditions first. My condition isn't for Daoyu to marry into the clan. I just want Daoyu to help me refine dermic weapons. Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, if that's the case, then there's no problem. I'm opening a refining shop and helping people refine dermic weapons is my business. There's no need to talk about conditions. Seeing him agree so readily, the half-demon woman smiled and said, thank you for your generosity, Dao. My White Fox tribe will also pay Daoyu spirit stones according to the market price. However, I have a presumptuous request, which is that the matter of refining dermic weapons for my White Fox tribe must not be leaked. Wang Daoyuan nodded and said, it's common to keep secrets for customers. That's not a problem. The half-demon woman was satisfied and said, since that's the case, I'll rent this shop to Daoyu. The rent will be waived and Daoyu can rent it for as long as you want. With that, the half-demon woman left the shop. Wang Daoyuan was very satisfied with the shop. The door faced east and faced a bustling street. There was nothing special about the shop and the backyard was not very spacious. There was only a simple residence and a small refining workshop. His avatar, Bai Sheng, used the dead wood in the space to make a signboard. Wang Daoyuan wrote the words, Wu's Refining Workshop, on the signboard. He hung the signboard on the main door and opened the shop. There were no workers in the shop. He needed to refine dermic weapons and had no time to entertain customers. He simply placed a customer's "Please enter" sign on the counter and entered the refining workshop to see what good things the archaic mysteries sect disciples had left for him. The refining workshop was a square stone house that was 4 to 5 feet long. In the middle of the house was a stone platform with anvils and hammers placed on it. This was where the forging process was done. Beside the south wall was a fixed refining furnace that could be used to refine materials. Beside the west wall were some special dermic weapons, including saws for processing dermic wood, chisel for inscribing dermic patterns, and other tools. In addition, there were a few pieces of second-tier materials. The small door of the workshop was opened on the east wall and there was a pile of dermic charcoal beside the door. Beside the north wall was a pool used to quench dermic weapons. Although the items were not very precious, it would take a lot of time and spirit stones to buy them again. He came here to open a refining workshop to deceive others. It was good to save some time. After opening for half a month, only a few customers came. He bought a few pieces of second-tier materials and sold a second-tier medium longsword. It was time to start his plan to get the yin-yang purple jade from Blood Shadow. Wang Daoyuan left Guiyan Market and entered Guiyan Mountain. He found an underground cave with the spirit-seeking compass and released his avatar, Wu. Wu Yi had stayed in the space for so many years and his cultivation had reached the 8th level foundation establishment realm. He could try to enter Blood Shadow. He still had to make preparations. He took back the divided soul in his body and put it back in. After doing this, Wang Daoyuan began to tamper with Wu Yi's memories. In order to prevent experts from repairing the tampered memories, Wang Daoyuan first erased all of Wu Yi's memories after he was captured and then implanted fake memories. After the memories were tampered with, even if someone searched his soul, they would not expose any useful information about Wang Daoyuan. In the tampered memories, Wu Yi failed to assassinate Wang Daoyuan and was chased by Wang Daoyuan and a few spirit beasts. He even lost his inky gold sword. Wang Daoyuan had used the inky gold sword in front of others before. Blood Shadow's intelligence was very good. If they knew that he was in possession of the sword, Wu Yi would be exposed. In the tampered memories, Wu Yi was chased by Wang Daoyuan's spirit beasts. He fled all the way to the southeast and went thousands of miles deep into the sky/mountain range. He relied on his ability to hide his body to avoid being chased. In the end, he found an ancient cultivator's cave and hid in it to cultivate for many years. He only dared to come out when his cultivation reached the 8th level foundation establishment realm. The cave in his memories was also fabricated. It was only about 500 miles away from the sky/mountain range's main mountain range, so Blood Shadow's people did not dare to check it out. The evil techniques used to erase and tamper memories came from the beast skin book left behind by the 10,000 Corpse spiritual master. Originally, Wang Daoyuan disdained to learn these evil techniques. However, in order to get the yin-yang purple jade, he did not mind learning a few evil techniques. There was no good or evil technique. It depended on who it was used on. After the preparations were done, it was time to let Wu Yi go back and enter Blood Shadow. Chapter 285. Wang Daoyuan gave his doppelganger Wu Yi a low-grade second-rank metal-attributed flying sword. This magic tool was made when he was practicing the art of refining. There was also a storage bag which contained a few thousand spirit stones, more than a dozen second-rank pills, and several second-rank talismans. In Wu Yi's memory, the flying sword and storage bag were obtained by killing a rogue cultivator after he left the ancient cultivator's cave. He gave Wu Yi a few Earth Escape talismans. After erasing all memories of himself, he let Wu use Earth Escape talismans to head to the south of the mountain. The two of them were in the east of Guiyan Valley. There were almost no second-rank demonic beasts, so Earth Escape was not dangerous. After Wu Yi's doppelganger left, Wang Daoyuan also immediately used Earth Escape Talisman to head to Beiyuan Market Square. This time, it took him 4 to 5 days to deal with his doppelganger. It was common for rogue cultivators to close their shops and go out to do business. He was not afraid that people would be suspicious. With Wang Daoyuan's current divine sense cultivation, he could perceive his doppelganger within 100 miles. This meant that he could directly perceive what his doppelganger saw and heard. In addition, he could also directly say whatever he wanted to say from Wu Yi's mouth. Beiyuan Market Square was only about 30 miles from the south to the north. The widest from east to west was only about 20 miles. Within 100 miles of perception, as long as Wu Yi did not leave Beiyuan Market Square, he could perceive him. 3 days later, Wu Yi's doppelganger entered his perception range. Wu Yi followed his memory and entered Beiyuan Market Square. The Blood Shadow North Mountain Branch's encampment was in the central area of Beiyuan Market Square. Wu Yi's doppelganger was dressed like a rogue cultivator. He wore a black robe and a bamboo hat. He walked to the entrance of a restaurant in the central area. This restaurant's entrance faced the south. A red plaque with golden edges was hung on the lintel. 3 golden words were written on it: Immortal Welcome Restaurant. This Immortal Welcome Restaurant was the encampment of the Blood Shadow North Mountain Branch. Wu Yi entered the Immortal Welcome Restaurant. Immediately, a greeter came forward and asked, "Senior, are you here for a meal or a room?" Wu Yi said coldly, "A single courtyard." The layout of the Immortal Welcome Restaurant was similar to Beiyuan Inn. The rooms were divided into 3 types: a common room, a private room, and a courtyard. The greeter brought Wu Yi to the counter. The shopkeeper handed him a token and said, "The easternmost courtyard in the backyard." The usher smiled and said, "Senior, please follow me." Wu Yi did not take the token, nor did he move. He sneered and said, "Give me the westernmost courtyard. The western part is of the metal element, and the murderous aura is the strongest." The shopkeeper didn't even raise his eyes. He looked at the account book and said, "Not everyone can live in the westernmost courtyard. If you want to live there, it depends on how capable Dao Yu is." Wu Yi smiled and said, "I have always been very confident in my own abilities." The shopkeeper shouted, "Men!" A 4th-level foundation establishment black-clothed young man walked over. The shopkeeper continued, "Take him to the westernmost courtyard. Don't care if he's dead or alive." The black-clothed youth didn't answer. He turned around and walked towards the backyard. Wu Yi followed behind him. Soon, the 2 of them arrived at the entrance of a small courtyard that occupied half an acre of land. There was nothing special about this small courtyard, except that it was covered by a layer of light. The black-clothed youth said, "The formation of this small courtyard doesn't have a control token. If you have the ability to enter, you can stay here." Wu Yi walked straight forward and passed through the light barrier. Then, his path became complicated. After a few steps, he had to turn a corner. Sometimes, he had to take a few steps back. The distance from the defensive light barrier to the entrance of the small courtyard was only a few feet, but he had to walk hundreds of steps. He walked to the entrance and gently pushed the door open. Then, he walked into the small courtyard. Seeing him enter, the black-clothed youth turned around and left the backyard. After Wu Yi entered the small courtyard, he walked straight to the main building. There were no formations or restrictions along the way. When he arrived at the main building, he pushed the door open and entered. The main building was divided into 3 rooms. The central room was in the middle. There was a portrait hanging on the back wall of the central room. The person in the portrait was wearing a blood-red robe. He held a black sword in his right hand and a head in his left hand. He was walking forward. The head looked very strange. Its facial features looked a little like a human's, but it had scales and 4 ox-like horns. However, the portrait depicted the person's back. The face couldn't be seen at all. It was impossible to tell whether the person in the portrait was a man or a woman. When Wu Yi became an internal member of the Blood Shadow North Mountain Branch, he was told that this was the portrait of Ancestor Shui. Legend had it that Ancestor Shui Yi displayed his might when resisting the invasion of the foreign species. He killed the foreign species commander and became famous. After repelling the invaders, he established a sect and recruited disciples. Later on, For some unknown reason, Ancestor Shui Yi disappeared. His disciples fought fiercely for power and profit. After several years of fighting, only 2 disciples were left. Their cultivations weren't very good. Most of the sect's experts were dead. They didn't dare to stay in the mountain gate. The 2 of them took the sect's inheritance and treasures and left the mountain gate. Later, the 2 disciples of Ancestor Shui Yi founded Blood Shadow together. Ancestor Shui Yi was honored as the founder of Blood Shadow sect. Wu Yi walked to the offering table and took out 3 incense sticks. He lit them and inserted them into the incense burner in front of the portrait. Then, he walked to the futon beside the offering table and knelt down. He kowtowed 3 times and kowtowed 9 times to the portrait. Then a tile under the offering table moved to the side, revealing a half-foot wide pit. At the bottom of the pit was a dent. The pattern on it was exactly the same as the front of Wu Yi's Blood Shadow token. He took out the Blood Shadow token and placed it on the dent. Then, he cut his finger and squeezed out a drop of blood onto the token. The token of an internal member of Blood Shadow was different from that of an external member. Anyone who picked it up could become a member of Blood Shadow. An internal member's token was 1 token per person. Once the person died, the token would become invalid. He dripped his blood on the token to prove that it was his. When his blood fell on the token, it emitted a light. After 3 breaths, the light of the token disappeared. A cracking sound came from the eastern house. Wu Yi immediately put away the token and moved the tile back to cover the small pit. He walked towards the eastern house and saw a 5-foot square hole in the ground of the eastern house. There was a staircase in the hole that extended downwards. He followed the staircase down to the bottom of the hole. After half a cup of tea's time, he reached the bottom of the hole. As soon as he walked down the stairs, 3 swords came out from different directions and were placed on his neck. It just so happened that his neck was completely surrounded. There was no place to hide. 4 people walked out from the darkness. 3 of them were holding swords. All of them were at Foundation Establishment Level 3. The empty-handed one was at Foundation Establishment Level 6. The empty-handed cultivator asked, "What's your name?" Wu Yi took out the token and showed it to him. The empty-handed cultivator was surprised. "Wu, you haven't come back for more than 20 years. But your soul lamp hasn't been extinguished. The Hall Master thought you had betrayed us. If you didn't come back after 25 years, the Hall Master would have reported to the headquarters and sent Blood Wolf to kill you. Where have you been all these years? Why haven't you come back?" Wu Yi coldly snorted. He released the spirit energy of Foundation Establishment Level 8 and said, "Is this something you should ask?" The 3 sword-wielding cultivators were shocked. They immediately withdrew their swords. The empty-handed cultivator was also a bit scared. In Blood Shadow, strength determines status. Wu Yi was at Foundation Establishment Level 8. His status was naturally above the 4 of them. They didn't dare to offend him. Wu Yi said to the empty-handed cultivator, "Take me to see the Hall Master." The empty-handed cultivator didn't say anything and led the way in front. This underground cave was very big. The empty-handed cultivator led him for 15 minutes before they arrived at a palace-like building. The empty-handed cultivator shouted, reporting to the Hall Master, "Sir Wu Yi has returned." A female voice came from inside the palace. "Wu, come in." Wu Yi clasped his fist. "Yes, Hall Master." Saying so, he walked forward. The empty-handed cultivator left and continued to guard the door. Chapter 286. When Wu Yi entered the palace, he saw a red-clothed woman sitting on the main seat and a black-clothed man sitting below her. The red-clothed woman wore a scarlet fox mask, and her figure was extremely voluptuous. Her clothes were also made of extraordinary cloth. The cloth used for a normal robe was enough to make more than 10 sets of clothes for her. Wu Yi was instinctively afraid of this red-clothed woman and didn't dare to have any other thoughts. Wang Daoist, who was using his panoramic perception, felt his blood boil. He was worried that his emotions would disturb Wu Yi, so he immediately circulated his water spirit energy to calm himself down. On the other side, Wu Yi wasn't affected at all. He bowed. "Wu Yi greets Hall Master." After speaking, he cupped his hands towards the black-clothed man. "Greetings, Lord Yu Lang." This red-clothed woman was called Scarlet Fox, and she was the person in charge of the Blood Shadow Mountain's northern branch. She was said to be an early Zifu realm cultivator, but Wu Yi couldn't feel her spirit energy at all. The black-clothed man was the #1 assassin of the northern branch, Yu Lang. He was still at the peak of Foundation establishment, and it seemed like he didn't have enough spirit stones to exchange for a yin-yang purple jade. Wang Daoyuan was quite happy. As long as he didn't open his Zifu, he could take him down and refine him into his clone. Wu Yi and Yu Lang's clones exchanged for a yin-yang purple jade each. Scarlet Fox asked, "Wu Yi, you accepted the mission to assassinate Wang Daoyuan of the Jade Spring Wang family. In the past 20 years, Wang Daoyuan has been living well, but there's been no news of you. How do you explain this?" Wu Yi immediately recounted his experiences in the past 20 years according to Wang Daoyuan's altered memories. Scarlet Fox muttered, "What you said is too bizarre. You were able to enter the outer regions of the sky/mountain range, and you were able to escape from an ancient cultivator's cave. Your words don't have any evidence or witnesses, so how can I believe you? Yu Lang, what do you think?" Yu Lang replied, "Hallmaster, in my opinion, Wu Yi's words can't be trusted, but we can't be sure that he's lying either. Wu Yi is already at the 8th level of Foundation establishment, and is one of the top experts in our northern branch. We can't deal with him easily, so let's use the Truth Talisman." Scarlet Fox nodded and said to Wu Yi, "In Yu Lang's opinion, we will use the Truth Questioning Talisman on you. Wu, are you willing?" Wu Yi cupped his hands and said, "This subordinate is willing." Crimson Fox took out a jade box and opened it. Within it was a blood-red spirit talisman. Judging from the fluctuation of spiritual power emitted from the talisman, it was a 3rd-level low-grade questioning talisman. For cultivators in the late stage of Foundation establishment and the peak stage, their soul strength and spiritual sense cultivation were high enough. The probability of using the 2nd-level upper-grade questioning heart talisman was very high. To be on the safe side, he needed to use a 3rd-grade low-grade truth questioning talisman. The highest grade the truth questioning talisman could reach was 3rd-level lower grade. Any higher grade would be meaningless. A Zifu disciple's soul had transformed into a divine soul, and he had the protection of his Zifu disciple's Zifu disciple. The interrogation talisman was completely useless. The 3rd-order questioning heart talisman was prepared for cultivators in the late stage and peak stage of the Foundation establishment realm. Scarlet Fox handed the questioning heart talisman to Quiet Wolf. Yu Lang took the truth questioning talisman and walked in front of Wu. He placed the truth questioning talisman on Wu Yi's forehead and activated it with his spiritual energy. In order to prevent other Zifu disciples from using their spiritual sense to activate the 3rd-order talisman, a special arrangement was made on the talisman. Only by injecting spiritual sense into the trigger point could the talisman be successfully activated. A Foundation establishment cultivator would still need to spend quite a bit of time to find the trigger point on the 3rd-order talisman. This wasn't like facing an enemy in battle. Using spiritual energy to activate the talisman was much simpler. After the truth questioning talisman was activated, Scarlet Fox asked Wu Yi more than 10 questions. Wu Yi's memories had been tampered with by Wang Daoyuan. Unless a Zifu disciple or higher directly searched his soul, they wouldn't be able to find any clues. Just by relying on the truth questioning talisman, they wouldn't be able to get anything out of him. Wu Yi answered all of Scarlet Fox's questions according to his tampered memories. Scarlet Fox waved her hand and the truth questioning talisman on Wu Yi's forehead fell to the ground, turning into a wisp of green smoke. She laughed lightly and said, "What you said is indeed the truth. My northern mountain branch has gained another capable cultivator in the late stage of Foundation establishment." Wu Yi bowed and apologized. "Wu is incompetent. My cultivation is above Wang Daoyuan's, but I wasn't able to obtain victory. Hallmaster, please punish me." Scarlet Fox laughed. "This isn't your fault. Even I, with my cultivation at the 5th level of Foundation establishment, wouldn't have the confidence to win against the 3rd-level Wang Daoyuan." Wu didn't have any memories of Wang Daoyuan. Hearing these words, he felt extremely astonished. Scarlet Fox was someone from the Blood Wolf sect. The Blood Wolf sect was responsible for dealing with traitors and leakers. Every one of them was far stronger than those of the same level. Yet, Scarlet Fox said that he couldn't obtain victory with his 2-level cultivation advantage. Yulang also said, "You just came from the sky-chopping mountain range. You don't know much about Wang Daoyuan's past 20 years. More than 10 years ago, the Netherworld sect and the Savage Sun sect had a gambling match. Both sects sent out cultivators from the early stage of Foundation establishment to the late stage of Zifu disciple to duel. The winner of the duel would determine the distribution of the Spirit Stone Mine. With his cultivation at the 5th level of Foundation establishment, he defeated 5 mid-stage Foundation establishment cultivators from the Savage Sun sect. 3 of them were even at the 6th level of Foundation establishment. Among the 3, one was a direct descendant of the Wei clan, one was a half-demon with the bloodline of the Black Flame Tiger, and the last one was a wind attribute cultivator. Among cultivators of the same level, they were all first-rate experts. The Wei clan ancestor and the Wang clan ancestor were close friends. Wang Daoyuan knew the weakness of the Wei clan. Defeating the Wei clan's direct descendant could be said to be a trick. However, defeating the half-demon and wind attribute cultivator relied on brute strength. He could condense the image of a golden rock. This image could be used in close combat and could be used for feather attacks. As long as he could condense the image of the golden rock, a 6th-level Foundation establishment cultivator wouldn't be able to resist. After he obtained 5 consecutive victories, the Savage Sun sect sent out their top genius, Lei Wudao. He was a lightning attribute sword cultivator and had long been known to be invincible among cultivators of the same level. His cultivation was 1 level higher, but he was still heavily injured by Wang Daoyuan. On the other hand, Wang Daoyuan only suffered light injuries and lost after exhausting his spiritual energy. If the two of them fought at the same level, the outcome would be uncertain. Back then, when you assassinated him, did you see this golden rock image? Wu Yi's mouth opened wide in shock. I didn't expect the golden rock image to be so powerful. When I assassinated him back then, he did use the golden rock image. However, I had the spirit-binding silk cloak and hid behind the mountain rocks. He only used the golden rock image to search for me and didn't attack much. If not for the spirit-binding silk cloak, I'm afraid I would have died back then. Unfortunately, when I was escaping, the cloak was also damaged. Scarlet Fox laughed. It's good enough that you came back alive. That kid isn't someone you can deal with. Most of the people in the Blood Wolf clan are only at the standard of the Wei clan's direct descendant. Even the top figures can hardly compare to Lei Wudao. Wang Daoyuan's cultivation talent isn't much, but his fighting strength is comparable to Lei Wudao. Wu Yi nodded dispiritedly and didn't say anything else. Scarlet Fox continued, "You're now an 8th-level Foundation establishment cultivator. In our North Mountain branch, you can be considered one of the top experts. I'll keep your cave residence for you. Go back and take a good look at the recent information. Only then will you be able to take on important tasks in the future." Wu Yi cupped his hands and left the palace, walking back to his cave residence. After Wu Yi left, Scarlet Fox asked Yulang, "Do you think Wu Yi is reliable?" Yulang sneered. "Do you think I'm reliable? We're not direct descendants of the Blood Shadow like you. We only joined the Blood Shadow for the opportunity to advance. Wu Yi was raised by you since he was in the Qi refinement stage, while I joined halfway. You're asking me if he's reliable. Are you doubting him or me? As long as the Blood Shadow can provide the yin-yang purple jade and the purple cloudwood core, we're reliable. If we don't have these two things, we're unreliable." After speaking, Yulang walked out of the palace. Chapter 287. Scarlet Fox sighed and shook her head helplessly. She was a direct descendant of Blood Shadow, and her father was a mid-level member of Blood Shadow. When she was young, she was quickly sent to Blood Wolf after displaying her extraordinary cultivation talent. Although her talent was not the best in Blood Wolf, it was still top-notch. Her journey was smooth, and she reached the peak of Foundation establishment in her 70s. As long as the top geniuses of Blood Wolf had enough contributions, they could directly exchange for yin-yang purple jade or purple cloudwood core. For someone of her level, she had to fight for the right to exchange with Blood Wolf members of the same level. In the competition, she shone brightly and defeated all her opponents, obtaining the right to exchange and successfully establishing her purple mansion. After Blood Wolf members established their purple mansion, they would be specially used to hunt down purple mansion targets and would be heavily nurtured. Those who performed well might enter the upper echelons. However, she was ostracized because she defeated the grandson of a golden core upper echelon in the competition for the right to exchange and did not receive any important tasks. That golden core upper echelon firmly believed that his grandson would win and even made a bet for that. In the end, that golden core lost the bet and lost a lot of money. He even embarrassed himself among the upper echelons. Back then, she was the #1 beauty in Blood Wolf. That golden core cultivator wanted to marry her, and that golden core cultivator was very supportive. Scarlet Fox embarrassed him, but as long as his grandson could marry her, he would be able to regain his lost face. He expressed that as long as she was willing to marry his grandson, he would entrust her with important tasks. However, Scarlet Fox was proud and arrogant back then. How could she be willing to marry a loser? That golden core cultivator was embarrassed once again. After that, Scarlet Fox was suppressed even more. Her father was sent out to carry out a dangerous mission and died. She was also disheartened and completely gave up on the idea of entering the upper echelons. She volunteered to be the branch hall master. This job was done by the worst batch of people in Blood Wolf, or the useless descendants of the upper echelons. That golden core upper echelon lost face twice in a row, and his losses were not small either. How could he let her have it easy? Therefore, he sent her to the Xianbei branch. She came to the Xianbei branch more than 100 years ago. At that time, the demons and Netherworld sect had yet to reach a reconciliation, and the humans of Xianbei were still suppressed. Blood Shadow was also a human force, and naturally, they did not have it easy and were often attacked by the demons. Until nearly 100 years ago, when the Underworld sect and the Demon Clan had reconciled and humans had entered the northern mountains, the Demon Clan had stopped suppressing the humans. The days in the Xianbei branch were also much better. Scarlet Fox also began to take in rogue cultivators to strengthen his strength. However, that Golden Core Senior wouldn't let her off so easily. As soon as the Xianbei branch began to show signs of improvement, the headquarters had sent people over to seize the credit. They had placed a large number of people over, and they had even sent over an early-stage Zifu disciple vice hall master. Although there were more people in the Xianbei branch and their influence had increased greatly, the power that Scarlet Fox controlled had weakened instead. Moreover, her direct subordinates had been suppressed by the vice hall master. Cultivators like Wu Yi, whom she had personally nurtured, were rarely able to grow up. Later on, he directly recruited rogue cultivators into the branch to suppress the people sent by the Blood Shadow headquarters. Yu Lang was the representative of this group of people. Scarlet Fox's days here weren't too good either. His direct subordinates were too weak, the people sent by the headquarters didn't listen to him, and the loose cultivators were wild and untamed. In order to suppress the vice hall master, Yu Lang had directly talked back to her, but she had to endure it. As for Wu Yi, who was under her direct command, she wouldn't easily deal with him. All the Foundation establishment cultivators in the Xianbei branch had their own cave abodes underground, and Wu Yi was naturally no exception. He came to his cave abode and pretended to cultivate. Not long after, someone sent over a beast skin book with the words, "Bounty Record," written on the cover. The Blood Shadow's rule was that assassinations of Zifu disciple and above were all done by the headquarters. The various branches would only take on Qi refinement and Foundation establishment cultivators. The only cultivators recorded in the bounty book were Qi refinement and Foundation establishment cultivators. The first page of the Beastskin book was a table of contents, and the second page was the Scarlet Beard Bandits bounty. The Scarlet Beard Bandits currently had 7 Foundation establishment cultivators and 2 of their leaders. Each of them had a bounty of 300,000 spirit stones, while the other 5 had bounties ranging from 50 to 100,000 spirit stones. There were also many Foundation establishment cultivators from the various powers in the Shanbei branch, including cultivators from the Beiyuan sword sect. However, their bounties were all below 100,000 spirit stones. At the end of the Foundation establishment cultivators' bounties, there was also Wang Daoyuan's bounty. The bounty record also recorded the target's basic information, including his age, cultivation, as well as his more famous battle achievements. The bounty record recorded his participation in the Battle of Guiyan Valley, the encirclement of the Scarlet Beard Bandits, the defeat of the Beast Tide, and his participation in the duel. However, the bounty record didn't mention his activities in the Sky-Split Mountain range in detail. It only said that he had been in seclusion on Jadesong Mountain for the past 10 years. Through Wu Yi's doppelganger, Wang Daoyuan saw the records about himself and felt relieved. Even with the Blood Shadows intelligence network, they didn't discover that he had disguised himself a few times, nor did they know that he was in the 7th stage of Foundation establishment. As for his cultivation, it said that he was in the 5th stage of Foundation establishment 10 years ago. Furthermore, he might not have used his full strength during the duel, so it was not recommended for assassins below the peak of Foundation establishment to attack him. According to the bounty record, his head was currently worth 200,000 spirit stones. In the bounty record, it was only lower than the 2 leaders of the Scarlet Beard Bandits. Behind his bounty record was the 12th uncle, Wang Shui. His head was currently worth 100,000 spirit stones. This made Wang Daoyuan very happy. In the future, he could go and mock the 12th uncle. Wang Daoyuan transmitted the information he saw to his clone in the bounty record space, allowing them to record it in a jade scroll. Although this information was rather brief, it was still somewhat useful, especially the information regarding the Beiyuan sword sect and the Scarlet Beard Bandits. The Wang clan and these two forces would fight sooner or later. Having some understanding was much better than not knowing anything. 3 days later, a black-clothed man at the 3rd stage of Foundation establishment came to Wu Yi's cave abode. The black-clothed man cupped his hands towards Wu Yi and said, "Lord Wu Yi, the Hall Master is looking for you. Please follow me." Wu didn't say anything and followed behind the black-clothed man. The black-clothed man didn't bring him to the palace, but to the Scarlet Fox's door. The black-clothed man cupped his hands towards the door of the cave abode and said, "Hall Master, Lord Wu Yi is here." A voice sounded from within the cave abode, "You may leave." After the black-clothed man left, the cave abode's door opened and a fragrant wind blew over. The Scarlet Fox's voice sounded once more, "Come in." Wu Yi was extremely fearful of the Scarlet Fox and didn't dare to have any improper thoughts, walking in obediently. The Scarlet Fox's cave abode was very big. There was even a spring inside and many exotic flowers and herbs were planted. There was also an arched door on the back wall of the cave abode. Behind it should be the Scarlet Fox's boudoir. In the middle of the cave abode was a circular stone table about 3 feet in diameter. There were 4 stone chairs placed around the stone table. The Scarlet Fox was sitting on a stone chair with her legs crossed. Wu Yi was just about to bow and greet when the Scarlet Fox said, "There's no need for these empty formalities. When you return this time, I originally wanted you to be a steward. However, the Deputy Hall Master didn't agree. He said that you haven't returned for more than 20 years. Even if you used the conscience questioning talisman and nothing happened, there's still no guarantee that you didn't collude with other forces. To be on the safe side, I'll still conduct some tests for you. If you can pass the tests, I'll agree to let you be a steward. If you don't pass the tests, not only will you not be able to be a steward, you might even be punished. You're my man, so I won't let you be dealt with by the Deputy Hall Master. This is something I prepared for you. Don't embarrass me." Finished talking, he threw a storage pouch to Wu. Chapter 288. Wu Yi received the storage bag, hung it at his waist, and said with clasped hands, "Many thanks for Hallhead's help." Crimson Fox smiled and said, "You were groomed by me single-handedly, my direct subordinate. If I don't help my own direct subordinates, can I help others? Vice Hallhead suspects that you're colluding with the Netherworld sect. This test might be to make you kill the Netherworld sect's people. You go ahead and do it. If anything happens, I'll take responsibility for you. Wu Yi said solemnly, "Many thanks for Hall Head's great kindness. This subordinate will definitely do his best." Crimson Fox nodded his head in satisfaction and said, "You go then. When doing things, you have to remember that you're not Bloodshadow's people, but my, Crimson Fox's people." Wu Yi withdrew respectfully and returned to his abode. After returning to the abode, he opened the storage bag that Crimson Fox gave. One had to admit that Crimson Fox treated his direct subordinates really well. This storage bag really contained quite a number of good things. A high-grade Tier 2 long sword, a high-grade Tier 2 shield, and also a long robe mixed with a small amount of God-forbidding silkworm silk. Apart from this, there were also several medicinal pills. The long sword was pitch black throughout. The main material was also black gold. But the material quality was much higher than that middle-grade Tier 2 black gold sword. The refining method could not be mentioned in the same breath as well. The shield seemed to be refined from some kind of tortoise shell. The refining method was somewhat crude. The tortoise shell's damage was more severe. One could not tell what kind it was. However, this magic artifact's defensive power was really not weak. After a day, a Peak Foundation establishment cultivator came to Wu Yi's abode. Wu Yi clasped his hands and said, "Greetings, Lord Mou." This Mou was the Vice Hall Head's person. He himself was also transferred over from Bloodshadow's headquarters. However, his talent was not too good and had not entered Bloodwolf before. He was already 130 to 140 years old and had only just reached Peak Foundation establishment not long ago. And it was said that in Bloodwolf, one could be eliminated if they did not reach Peak Foundation establishment before 100 years old. Mou did not reply. After handing a jade slip to Wu Yi, he turned around and left. Wu Yi plunged his divine sense into the jade slip. Inside the jade slip was the test content that the Vice Hall Head gave. Just as Crimson Fox expected previously, the Vice Hall Head's test was indeed to make him kill the Netherworld sex people. However, this test was not the assassination that Bloodshadow was good at, but an ambush. According to Bloodshadow's intelligence, a Netherworld sect caravan would depart from Gold Goose City in 10 days. They would carry a batch of goods through Guiyan Valley and arrive at Guiyan Market. Wu Yi's mission was to intercept the caravan with a few Bloodshadow Mid-Foundation establishment cultivators. Half of the seized goods would go to the North Mountain branch, and the other half would go to the cultivators on the mission. As the main force, Wu Yi could take half of the resources obtained by the cultivators who went on missions, which was a quarter of the total amount. There would be 4 Foundation establishment cultivators in the Underworld Sex Caravan. One of them would be at the 7th level of Foundation establishment, one at the 5th level of Foundation establishment, and 2 at the 3rd level of Foundation establishment. Wu Yi had stayed in the space of the Spiritual Pearl for so many years, so he wasn't completely freeloading. Wang Daoyuan had long had the idea of letting his clone, Wu Yi, infiltrate Bloodshadow's inner workings, which was why he had let him cultivate the sword cultivation legacy he had obtained from Li Qingchuan. Wu Yi already knew the heaven-cleaving sword and the myriad sword art, so even if he learned more, it wouldn't be too conspicuous. Although he didn't have much actual combat experience, with the sword cultivation legacy, his combat strength wasn't considered weak among those of the same level. It wouldn't be a problem for him to deal with an ordinary 7th level Foundation establishment cultivator. Furthermore, a cultivator sent by the Underworld sect to transport goods couldn't be considered very strong. It wouldn't be a problem for Wu Yi to take him down. On Bloodshadow's side, they allowed Wu Yi to bring 3 mid-Foundation establishment cultivators. In terms of cultivation, they could crush the other party. However, most of Bloodshadow's cultivators were only good at sneak attacks and not head-on confrontations. If the sneak attack failed, the 3 mid-Foundation establishment cultivators on Bloodshadow's side might not be able to defeat the 3 mid- and early-stage Foundation establishment cultivators of the Underworld sect. The location of the ambush this time was still in the Carriage Gorge area of the Guiyan Valley. The Underworld sect had suffered many losses there and was quite vigilant. It would be a little difficult to kill them in one shot. To be safe, Wang Daoyuan planned to sneak over first and personally control his clone, Wu Yi, when the time came. With his combat experience, Wu Yi's cultivation, and the sword cultivation legacy, even if the Underworld sect's 7th level foundation establishment cultivator was a wily old fox, he wouldn't be able to escape. As for the other 3 foundation establishment cultivators, he couldn't be bothered to care about them. It would be better if they died. He could take half of the goods for himself. Blood Shadow's side set off 5 days later. After Wang Daoyuan received the news, he immediately rushed to the carriage gorge. He discovered an underground rock crevice more than 15 kilometers east of the carriage gorge and more than 50 meters underground. Although the rock crevice wasn't big, it was enough for a person to hide in. He hid in the rock crevice and waited for the day of the ambush. 5 days later, it was time for Wu Yi to set off. Mou brought him to the hall where the hall master was. At this moment, there were 6 people in the hall. The hall master was still sitting on the main seat and Yu Lang was sitting on the right. On the left, there was a person wearing a tight black robe. His face was covered with a mask and his head was wrapped tightly in a black cloth. Judging from her curvaceous figure, she was undoubtedly a woman. This person was the Shanbei Division's deputy hall master, Xian Martin. His cultivation was at the early stage Sifu realm. It was said that he was once a member of the Blood Wolf. The Golden Core cultivator who suppressed Scarlet Fox was quite smart. If he had sent a man, he would have been fooled by Scarlet Fox. To deal with a beauty like Scarlet Fox, he had to send a woman. The other 3 people in the hall were all at the mid-stage foundation establishment stage and were wearing black robes. After Wu Yi entered the hall, Scarlet Fox said softly, "Wu Yi, in order to help you complete the mission, the Vice Hall Master sent 3 trusted aides to assist you. You have to perform well and not let down the Vice Hall Master's kind intentions." Only now did Wu Yi understand what Crimson Fox meant when he gave him the magic artifact. Scarlet Fox wanted him to remember that he was Scarlet Fox's man and not Blood Shadow's man. This meant that he had to try his best to kill the 3 of them. The authority to lead this mission was in his hands and Wang Daoyuan was personally controlling it. So what if he killed the 3 of them? Scarlet Fox gave a few more instructions and Wu Yi set off with the 3 of them towards the carriage gorge to set up an ambush. After arriving at the carriage gorge, the 4 of them set up an ambush on a mountain 5 kilometers west of the carriage gorge. There were many small mountains on the east side and the terrain was relatively flat. The west side had high mountains and dense forests which were convenient for concealment. After waiting for 5 days, a caravan finally arrived at the south side of the carriage gorge. This caravan had a total of 9 carriages and a total of 18 cultivators driving and escorting the carriages. The 4 of them immediately executed the earth escape technique and arrived at the side of the carriage gorge. When the caravan entered the carriage gorge, the 4 of them were only around 2,000 feet away from the carriage gorge and discovered that the 18 people in the caravan were all Qi refinement cultivators. When the caravan arrived at the north end of the carriage gorge, they had no choice but to stop. The gorge's entrance was blocked by a huge rock that was over 100 feet tall and as wide as the gorge. Wu Yi transmitted his voice to the other 3 people. This huge rock isn't something that Qi refinement cultivators can move. In a while, there will definitely be foundation establishment cultivators coming out to move the huge rock. As long as there are mid-stage or early-stage foundation establishment cultivators that come out, immediately attack and kill them. If you can kill one of the other foundation establishment cultivators, it will be easy for us to fight 4 against 3. One of the 3 asked via voice transmission, "Then what are you doing?" Wu Yi reprimanded via voice transmission, "If any of you have the confidence to kill a 7th-stage foundation establishment cultivator, I can make the first move. If you don't have the ability, then shut up and listen to orders. If you don't listen to orders and cause the mission to fail, when the Hall Master and Vice Hall Master pursue the matter, I might be severely punished and all of you will definitely die." Blood Shadow's punishment for disobeying orders was extremely severe. If the mission failed because of disobeying orders, the person who disobeyed orders would definitely die. The 3 of them stopped talking and quietly waited for the target to appear. Chapter 289. After the caravan stopped in front of the boulder, A few peak stage Qi refinement cultivators who were escorting the caravan took out superhuman strength talismans and pushed the boulder. This boulder was at least 40 to 50 kilograms. Wu Yi and the rest had also pushed it down from a high place. Furthermore, it was stuck between the walls of the canyon. Even Foundation establishment cultivators could not move it, let alone these Qi refinement cultivators. The peak stage Qi refinement cultivators pushed for a long time, but the boulder did not move at all. Even when they cast spells to attack the boulder, they only managed to get rid of some rock shards. If this continued, it would probably take 10 days to half a month to shatter the boulder. One of the escorting cultivators ran to the middle carriage and said a few words to it. Soon, a Foundation establishment cultivator at the 3rd level walked out of the carriage. He came to the boulder and pushed it a few times, but the boulder still did not move at all. He told everyone to retreat, then took out his flying sword and slashed at the boulder. Just as his flying sword hit the boulder, 3 sword beams flew over from the west side of the canyon. The cultivator did not have time to withdraw his sword and immediately cast a defensive spell. Unfortunately, he was too slow. Before he could cast his spell, the 3 sword beams had arrived. His entire body was sliced into 4 parts by the 3 sword beams, and the ground was dyed red. His flying sword hit the boulder. This boulder was not very hard for a Foundation establishment cultivator, and a 1-foot-deep sword mark was left on it. The person died and the flying sword lost control, getting stuck on the boulder. The Qi refinement cultivator was so frightened that he ran back the way he came. The 3 Foundation establishment cultivators that Wu Yi brought with him laughed and appeared. One of them said, "These resources are ours." An old voice came from the second carriage. "A few brats. You're too naive." Before he finished speaking, a sword flew out of the carriage. The 3 of them also controlled their flying swords and blocked this attack together. At this moment, 2 more flying swords flew out from the 4th and 8th carriages, attacking Blood Shadow and the other 2. The 3 of them recalled their flying swords. They did not have time to defend and could only dodge in a sorry state. In the caravan, 3 Foundation establishment cultivators had already walked out of the carriage. They were at the 7th level, 5th level and 3rd level respectively. The 7th level Foundation establishment cultivator was a white-haired old man, the 5th level Foundation establishment cultivator was a middle-aged man, and the 3rd level Foundation establishment cultivator was a young man. Wang Daoyuan sensed the situation of his doppelganger Wu Yi and was secretly shocked by Blood Shadow's ability to gather information. This caravan should have set off from Golden Goose City 4 or 5 days ago, but Blood Shadow was able to get the accurate information 10 days ago. It seemed that Golden Goose City had also been infiltrated by Blood Shadow. The white-haired old man from the underworld sect said, "With this old man here, the 3 Dao you can forget about taking away this batch of resources. I can forgive you for killing my men. You'd better leave quickly so that you don't lose your life." A cultivator from Blood Shadow laughed and said, "Old man, if you know what's good for you, then hurry up and leave. If he ran away now, he would still be able to keep his life. By the time we make our move, it will be too late for you to leave." The 3 from the Netherworld sect took back their flying swords, and then sent them out again. The 3 from Blood Shadow also sent out their flying swords, confronting their opponents head-on. This time, it was a one-on-one fight. On the Netherworld sect's side, the white-haired old man directly defeated his opponent, the middle-aged cultivator had a slight advantage, and the 3rd-level foundation building cultivator was only at a disadvantage, but not completely defeated. At this time, Wang Daoyuan completely took over the command of his doppelganger. He was somewhat speechless. These idiots' combat power was really trash. A 6th-level foundation building cultivator against a 7th-level foundation building cultivator. It was understandable that he couldn't win, but what did it mean to be crushed? Naturally, he wouldn't make his move now. He would wait until the 3 from Blood Shadow died in battle, and it would be best if 1 or 2 cultivators from the Netherworld sect died before making his move. In order to prevent the 3 from running away directly, he transmitted his voice. This 7th-level foundation building cultivator from the Netherworld sect is not ordinary. I'm not sure I can beat him in a head-on fight. If we drag on for too long, The reinforcements from the Netherworld sect will arrive, and we'll all die. If we want to take him down as soon as possible, we can only launch a sneak attack. You guys force out his weakness, and I'll try to injure him severely in one blow." The three of them cursed Wu Yi's 18 generations of ancestors in their hearts, but now they were in a difficult position. If they ran away, they would definitely die. Their only hope was that Wu Yi's sneak attack would succeed. Two of them besieged the white-haired old man, trying to force out his weakness, while the other held back the middle-aged and young cultivators. The attacks of Blood Shadow and the other two were too simple. They only had some Dharma spells that were fast and stealthy, but not powerful enough. Sneak attacks were fine, but in a head-on fight, they couldn't exert much combat power at all. After a few minutes, the cultivator from Blood Shadow who was holding back the middle-aged and young cultivators couldn't take it anymore. He was pierced back and forth by the flying sword several times and died. The other two joined forces to fight the white-haired old man, but they could only gain a slight upper hand. It would be difficult for them to win even if they fought for another 2 hours. Now, the situation had become 2 against 3. With the white-haired old man around, it would be difficult for the two of them to escape. The two cultivators from the Netherworld sect who were free to take on an opponent for the white-haired old man. 100 breaths later, the white-haired old man cast a few Dharma spells consecutively, severely injuring his opponent. Of the 3 from Blood Shadow, only one of them was intact. Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to delay any longer. If the two of them lost their combat power, Wu Yi's doppelganger wouldn't be able to deal with the 3 of them. At that moment, the white-haired old man was chasing after the heavily injured cultivator from Blood Shadow. He controlled his doppelganger and used the myriad sword art to attack the middle-aged cultivator. His doppelganger wasn't strong enough. Even if he succeeded in sneak attacking the white-haired old man, it would be difficult to kill him in a single strike. Instead of injuring all 10 of his fingers, it was better to break one of his fingers. The young cultivator was too weak and there was no point in killing him. The best target was the middle-aged cultivator. Dozens of sword chi phantoms shot over and the middle-aged cultivator cast a defensive Dharma spell to defend against them. His casting speed was fast enough and he successfully cast the golden armor art. However, it was still insufficient in the face of the myriad sword art. The phantoms of the long swords attacked him. The middle-aged cultivator's golden armor art could only block 5 of the phantoms of the long swords before it was shattered. The phantoms of the long swords behind him sliced him into pieces. At that moment, the white-haired old man had also finished off the heavily injured cultivator from Blood Shadow. When he saw that his companion was killed, he was furious. It was now 2 against 2 and Blood Shadow had the upper hand in terms of cultivation. Wang Daoyuan smiled. "I'll leave that level 3 foundation establishment to you. Kill him as soon as possible and we'll work together to kill this level 7 foundation establishment cultivator. After we're done, we'll split this batch of resources equally." Hearing that, the Blood Shadow cultivator became spirited. Although he was a subordinate of Deputy Hall Master Xian Martin, he wasn't from Blood Shadow's headquarters. Instead, he was a local cultivator roped in by Xian Martin. He joined Blood Shadow just to make a living and get benefits. Why couldn't he follow anyone else? Wang Daoyuan naturally didn't want the last Blood Shadow cultivator to live. When dealing with the white-haired old man, he didn't take the initiative to attack. Instead, he used stalling tactics to give him a chance to sneak attack the Blood Shadow cultivator. The Blood Shadow cultivator attacked the young cultivator wildly. The young cultivator was only at level 3 foundation establishment and was soon beaten to the point where he couldn't fight back. The white-haired old man was anxious. Wu Yi alone was enough to stall him. If another one came, he would definitely die. He condensed the phantoms of the flaming lion to stall Wu Yi and charged towards the Blood Shadow cultivator. Seeing this scene through his doppelganger, Wang Daoyuan smiled. The cultivators of the Netherworld sect really knew him well. He did not stop the white-haired old man. Instead, he shattered the phantoms of the flaming lion and charged towards the young cultivator on his sword. When he arrived before the young cultivator, he channeled the flying sword beneath his feet and released a few phantoms of the sword, killing the young cultivator. On the other side, The white-haired old man released a flame as well, burning the blood shadow cultivator into ashes. Wang Daoyuan was delighted. The mission given by Scarlet Fox was completed, and the next step was to take care of this white-haired old man. The white-haired old man smiled. Daoyu, leave now, and Netherworld sect will let bygones be bygones. How about that? Wu Yi smiled without replying and released the 10,000 sword art once more. For the sake of speed, he only condensed 5 phantoms of the sword. The white-haired old man immediately controlled his sword and shattered the phantoms of the sword. Wu Yi seized the opportunity to release heaven-cleaving sword. 6 breaths later, a gigantic sword phantom that was more than 100 feet long appeared and slashed towards the white-haired old man. The white-haired old man was also a wily old fox. He could tell that even though the gigantic sword phantom was powerful, it wasn't fast enough. He controlled his sword to avoid the direction of the gigantic sword phantom's attack and hid behind a gigantic rock. At the same time, he began to accumulate spirit energy in preparation to release a powerful dermic art. Wang Daoyuan controlled his doppelganger and changed the direction of the gigantic sword phantom instantly while increasing its speed. The gigantic sword slashed down towards the gigantic rock, and the white-haired old man was sliced into 2 together. Chapter 290. The Foundation Establishment cultivators were all dead and the Qi Refinement cultivators had fled. Wu Yi was the only one alive. He collected the storage pouches of the Foundation Establishment cultivators, then searched through all 9 carriages. Most of the things in the carriages were raw materials, refined weapon refinement materials, grade 1 and grade 2 elixirs, etc. Right now, Wang Daoyuan was in urgent need of grade 3 elixirs so that he could gather enough for the Meridian Protecting Elixir to become an inferior grade 3 elixir refinement master. The ordinary grade 2 elixirs of Netherworld sect were not of much use to him. However, there were a few superior grade 2 elixirs that were of great use to him. Wang Daoyuan controlled his clone, Wu Yi, to take some of the superior grade 2 elixirs and weapon refinement materials. He did not dare to take too much. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if the Vice Hall Master pursued the matter. Not taking anything was not the style of itinerant cultivators. Furthermore, Wang Daoyuan was not rich right now. He only had slightly more than 200,000 spirit stones on hand. If he wanted to exchange for the yin-yang purple jade from Blood Shadow, he would need 600,000 to 700,000 spirit stones per piece. Even if he took some from his family, he would still be short of money. He had to try his best to earn more spirit stones. Even a mosquito's leg was meat. These things could be worth a lot of spirit stones as well. He could not keep the resources he intercepted with him either. Instead, he stored them in storage bags and hid them east of Carriage Gorge, not far from where Wang Daoyuan was hiding. After searching the corpses and hiding the loot, Wu Yi sent a message to Scarlet Fox, reporting the success of the operation and requesting the Hall Master to send someone over to receive them. After all, he did not have the ability to take away all 9 carriages of items alone, especially those weapon refinement materials which were extremely dense. A lump of metal material that was about a foot in diameter already exceeded the upper limit of the storage bag's capacity. He would need at least 100 to 200 storage bags to take away all of these items. After the news spread, more than 10 Peak Qi refinement cultivators rushed out of the forest west of Carriage Gorge in less than 15 minutes. Each of them had around 20 storage bags on them. The leader cupped his fists towards Wu. Lord Wu Yi, we were sent by the Hall Master to receive you. These people were clean-up cultivators specially groomed by Blood Shadow. Although their cultivation talents were not great, they were extremely good at cleaning up traces, moving and hiding the loot. Assassinations and robberies like this were usually coordinated by cultivators who would deal with the aftermath. Their arrival was equivalent to handing over the goods. As for the rest of the matter, there was no need for action cultivators to participate. Wu Yi didn't care about that anymore and immediately fled on his sword. Wang Daoyuan took the loot that Wu Yi had hidden near him and escaped underground. He and his doppelganger did not immediately return to Wild Goose City Square. Instead, they lingered around the city square for a few days before entering the city square from the east. This was because the eastern part of the market was the half-fiends' territory. The half-fiends were in a state of disunity and were neutral. Therefore, most itinerant cultivators liked to mingle in this area. The itinerant cultivators who entered and left the market from the east were the most numerous. Hence, they would not be conspicuous among the itinerant cultivators. Wang Daoyuan had just returned to the market when he heard the news. The cultivators of the Netherworld sect were furious and had sent cultivators to cause trouble for the Guiyuan sword sect. The Guiyuan sword sect was also confused. They were sitting in the mountains, but the trouble came from the sky. The Guiyuan sword sect explained the situation to the Netherworld sect through the half-demon tribes that they had business with. The late-stage foundation establishment cultivators of the Guiyuan sword sect had not come out recently. Their sect's inheritance was very widespread and there were many people who knew one or two moves. Someone must have framed them. How could the cultivators of the Netherworld sect believe their enemies? The people and things at the scene of the incident did not even have ashes left. Only a huge rock that had been cut in half was split in half by a sword. From the marks left on the ground, it was obviously caused by the heaven-cleaving sword. For the heaven-cleaving sword to be so powerful, it was definitely not something that an itinerant cultivator who had learned one or two moves could do. The Guiyuan sword sect was speechless. Without the sword kinesis technique that was unique to the Guiyuan sword sect, the heaven-cleaving sword was not very powerful. The people of the Guiyuan sword sect also received the news that Wang Daoyuan knew the Guiyuan sword sect's dharma spells and they were very powerful. They used Wang Daoyuan as an example. The Netherworld sect did not care about them at all. The Wang family was in the limelight in the Netherworld sect and was deeply trusted by the sect master. Within the Netherworld sect, the Wang family had Purple Mansion elders and disciples who were under the tutelage of the native elders. They also held positions in the Netherworld sect. This treatment was better than most of the family members and outsiders. Besides, the Wang family started out as a miner and had always been worried about where to sell their ores. In recent years, they had expanded their territory in the sky/mountain range and opened up hundreds of acres of spirit fields. They also did not lack spirit herbs. Giving up a good future and risking the destruction of his family to rob the Netherworld sect of resources, and resources that he did not need. Anyone with a brain would not do such a stupid thing. Was Wang Daoyuan a fool? Who said that he was a fool? Those who had dealt with Wang Daoyuan before would vomit in their faces. Especially the cultivators of the cruel Sun Palace. They had been cheated badly during the duel between the two sections. And the goods from the Netherworld sect were at most 100,000 spirit stones. After the Wang family built the flying boat, there were rumors that Wang Daoyuan was proficient in alchemy, artifact, and talisman arrays. Would such a person lack spirit stones? If he could reach the level of a second-level superior-grade alchemy, artifact, and talisman array master, earning 10 or 20,000 spirit stones a year would be like child's play. Wang Daoyuan could do all three and was also proficient in array formations. Would such a person risk his life for a mere 100,000 spirit stones? No one would believe that it was Wang Daoyuan who did it. The blame was firmly pinned on the head of the Guiyuan sword sect, and there was no way to shake it off. The situation in the Shanbei Mountains that had been peaceful for a few years was stirred up once more. The Netherworld sect used this as an excuse to increase the garrison strength of the Guiyan market. This time round, the Netherworld sect had a sufficient reason, and it was the Shanbei Mountains that took the initiative to stir up trouble. As long as the matter was not blown out of proportion, the demons and half-demons could not say anything. Wang Daoyuan also returned to his own crafting workshop and started crafting artifacts. What did Blood Shadow have to do with me if he pretended to be someone from the Guiyuan sword sect to rob the Netherworld sect of their resources? The clone, Wu Yi, returned to the underground hideout of Blood Shadow and arrived at the meeting hall. Scarlet Fox sat high above while the Vice Hall Master, Xian Martin, sat on the left. Both of them wore masks and their expressions could not be seen. Wu bowed. "Greetings, Hall Master." He then bowed to Xian Martin. "Greetings, Vice Hall Master." Scarlet Fox said calmly, "No need for formalities. You did well this time round. Not only did you complete the mission, You also had the Beiyuan sword sect to take the blame. Even though she tried her best to control her voice so that others could not hear anything, her entire body was trembling slightly. It was obvious that she was extremely emotional. Wang Daoyuan, the clone of Wu Yi with his panoramic perception, saw something that he should not have seen and circulated his water spirit energy to calm himself down. The vice hallmaster, Shen Martin, asked coldly, "Wu, you came back unscathed while the 3 people I sent out are dead. Don't you think you owe me an explanation?" This vice hallmaster's voice was rather pleasant to the ears. Wu Yi did not hide anything and recounted the entire process of the battle. The rule of Blood Shadow was that it only depended on whether the mission could be completed. The life and death of manpower did not matter. It was perfectly normal for him to let the 3 of them hold back the Netherworld sect cultivators while he waited for an opportunity to strike. Shen Martin had nothing to say and snorted coldly before walking out of the meeting hall. Only Wu Yi and Scarlet Fox were left in the hall. Scarlet Fox laughed heartily and her entire body was trembling violently. Even though Wu Yi was extremely afraid of her, his qi and blood were unstable at this moment. On the other side, Wang Daoyuan seemed extremely calm after consuming more than 10 black jade lotus seeds in a single breath. After laughing for a long time, Scarlet Fox said to Wu, "There's a total of 90,000 spirit stones in this batch of resources. Since the other 3 are dead, you'll get half of it. I'll round it up for you and give you 50,000 spirit stones." With that, Scarlet Fox walked out of the hall. Thereafter, Wu Yi heard Scarlet Fox's voice transmission through her spirit consciousness. "Come to my cave abode at night. I have something to discuss." Those words could easily cause a misunderstanding. Even a gentleman like Wang Daoyuan could not help but think in the wrong direction. Chapter 291. At night, Wu Yi quietly arrived at the entrance of Scarlet Fox's cave. Scarlet Fox was a dignified Zifu realm cultivator. Her divine sense was extremely powerful and she naturally discovered that Wu Yi was outside. Wu Yi was just about to knock when the door to the cave opened. Scarlet Fox's voice sounded by his ear, "Come in." Wu Yi walked into the cave and the door behind him immediately closed. Just like last time, Scarlet Fox sat beside the stone table with her legs crossed. The only difference was that there was a wine jar and 2 wine bowls on the stone table. She was drinking wine. Wu Yi bowed and said, "Greetings, Hallmaster." Seeing Wu Yi walk in, she waved her jade hand and the wine flew out of the jar and landed in a bowl. Scarlet Fox smiled, "No need to be so courteous, drink." Before she finished speaking, the wine bowl that was just filled flew towards Wu. He caught the wine bowl and drained it in one gulp. Scarlet Fox was wearing a mask and naturally couldn't drink wine normally. The wine in the bowl formed a stream of water and entered through the gap between her neck and the mask. She then made a swallowing motion. After drinking the wine, Scarlet Fox no longer had the solemnity she had in the meeting hall and actually started to dance like a little girl. In the end, she actually walked in front of Wu Yi without caring about her image and patted his shoulder, smiling, "You've really made me proud this time. You took the resources of the Netherworld sect cleanly and even took care of that bitch's subordinates. Since that bitch came to the Shanbei branch, she's been causing trouble for me. This time, she finally suffered in your hands. What I didn't expect was that you could even drag the Origin Sword sect in as a scapegoat and even save me the trouble of dealing with the aftermath." At this moment, the 2 of them were more than a foot apart. Wu Yi was also somewhat unable to control himself at this moment. His heartbeat was rapidly rising and his face started to turn red. On the other side, Wang Daoyuan took out a handful of inky jade lotus seeds from the space and directly stuffed them into his mouth without even counting them. He swallowed them and started to refine them. He relied on the yin qi within the lotus seeds to suppress his rampaging qi and blood. Suddenly, he felt that his nose was slightly hot. He wiped his nose and looked at his fingers. Then, he covered his nose and said, "This clone is really useless." He couldn't control himself just like that. "I only had some red snot flow and my heart was completely unaffected. This old man has lived for 2 lifetimes and has lived for more than 100 years. What kind of situation has this old man not seen? How could he be defeated by such a small trick? After saying that, he cast rejuvenation on his nose. The effect of rejuvenation was pretty good. The red snot immediately stopped flowing. Crimson Fox noticed Wu Yi's abnormality as well, and realized that he had lost his composure. She quickly sat back down on the stone chair and took out a storage bag, saying, "This is your reward this time, a total of 50,000 spirit stones. There's also a steward's token inside. From now on, you're the 4th steward of the Xianxia branch." He cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your guidance, Hallmaster." Crimson Fox said with a light smile, "So long as you remember that you're my subordinate and work well for me, you'll absolutely have no lack of benefits. Now that you're a manager, you need more people. I don't have enough people on my side, so I can't transfer them to you. It's better if you recruit them yourself." The members of the Xianxia branch were mainly divided into 2 groups. One was the external affairs cultivator, and the other was the direct cultivator. There were many cultivators in charge of external affairs, including Qi refinement cultivators and foundation establishment cultivators. These cultivators were under the command of various stewards. Usually, the Blood Shadow assassins outside were this group of people. The direct subordinates were directly led by the Hall Master and Vice Hall Master. Some of these direct subordinates were brought over from the headquarters, while some were promoted by ordinary assassins. These people were outstanding in certain aspects, such as strong combat strength, well-informed information, and those who dealt with the aftermath. They were all direct subordinates. They were the direct subordinates that the Hall Master and Vice Hall Master focused on nurturing. They were also the seedlings for future stewards. Usually, they wouldn't carry out assassination missions, but would deal with the aftermath. When the external affairs cultivators failed the mission and leaked the news, they would be dealt with by the direct subordinates. The 3 cultivators who were killed by Wu Yi were the direct subordinates of the Vice Hall Master. However, they were just promoted from ordinary assassins and weren't brave enough. After being scared by Wu Yi, they were terrified. It wasn't easy to nurture direct subordinates. Not only did they have to be capable, but they also had to be loyal. This was also the reason why Crimson Fox was so happy. Before Wu Yi, there were a total of 3 stewards in the Xianxia branch. The Vice Hall Master had 2 subordinates, while Crimson Fox only had 1 subordinate, Yu Lang, who didn't listen to orders. The cultivators that Crimson Fox nurtured herself were either roped in or killed by the Vice Hall Master. In order to prevent all her subordinates from being killed, she took in most of her trusted subordinates as her direct subordinates, leaving only a few who weren't in an important position under Yu Lang. Previously, Wu Yi was the external affairs cultivator under Yu Lang. Now Wu Yi was the 4th steward. At the very least, in terms of the number of stewards, Crimson Fox could compete with the Mystic Marten. Of course, Crimson Fox was still far behind in terms of middle and bottom-level cultivators. Wu Yi said solemnly, "I won't let you down, Hallmaster." Crimson Fox waved his hand. "You may leave. Whether or not I can suppress the Vice Hall Master will depend on you." Wu Yi left gratefully and returned to his cave abode to prepare for the recruitment of subordinates. After that, there wasn't much to pay attention to on Wu Yi's side. Wang Daoist began to do his own work. After all, he had to do business since he was running a weapon refinement shop. He was still hoping to earn spirit stones from refining weapons to exchange for yin-yang purple jade, so he had to do his business well. The 6 storage bags that Wu Yi's clone obtained from searching the corpse and some of the resources were all in his hands. These 7 people were not very rich. In the 7 storage bags, there were only a little more than 20,000 spirit stones. There were not many elixirs, spirit talismans, and other items. The only dermic weapon was a sword for each of them. Since they were not itinerant cultivators, it was normal for them to not have many items with them. Together, all of those dermic weapons were worth around 30,000 spirit stones. However, he could not sell those items directly and had to change their appearances and refine them. Just as he was refining the 7 swords, a customer arrived. It was the half-demon woman from the White Fox tribe. She brought 2 young and beautiful women with her and walked straight to the backyard. When she saw that Wang Daoyuan was refining weapons, she did not dare to disturb him. There was a rule of not revealing one's abilities in the various arts of immortal cultivation. She would naturally not violate that taboo. Wang Daoyuan had already noticed her arrival and was refining one of the swords in his hands. After forging it into shape, he was not in a hurry to inscribe patterns and went out to welcome her. After exiting the weapon refinement shop, he cupped his hands and said, "Dao, I am honored by your presence. Please forgive me for not going out to meet you." The woman smiled and said, "Dao, you don't have to be so polite. My name is Bai Ying, you can just call me by my name. I'm here to ask Dao you to help me refine a few dermic weapons. I've brought all the materials and requirements." Bai Ying handed the 2 storage bags to Wang Daoyuan and continued, "I saw that Wu Daoyu was also alone, so I brought 2 juniors from the tribe to take care of Daoyu." Wang Daoyuan took the storage bags and said, "I'll take the job, but forget about the people. I've already sent a message to an old friend of mine. After a while, he will come over to help me. My friend is also a weapon refinement master, so he can help me and look after the shop. Miss Bai, you don't have to worry about it." Bai Ying was instantly interested and asked, "I wonder if Dao Yu is willing to become friends with the White Fox tribe." Chapter 292. Wang Daoyuan had a strange expression on his face. Is the White Fox tribe trying to improve their breeds? Why are they always looking for someone to marry into their family? He replied, "My friend is also focused on cultivation and is not interested in the matters between men and women. I'm really sorry." Bai Ying looked disappointed. "That's too bad. If any of Wu Daoyu's friends have such intentions, Wu Daoyu can help to act as a go-between." Wang Daoyuan was completely speechless. No matter what, he was the mastermind behind the changes in Shanbei. Why did the people of the White Fox tribe think that he was a matchmaker? If he had known this would happen, he would rather die of poverty than rent a shop in the White Fox tribe. However, the shop's location was not bad, and business was really good. He had not been in the shop for the past few days because of Wu Yi's clone. However, he still sold 2 Dharma weapons and earned 5,000 to 6,000 spirit stones. After sending Bai Ying away, Wang Daoyuan opened 2 storage bags. One of them contained a few upper-grade and middle-grade level 2 materials for refining Dharma weapons, while the other one contained 4 jade slips. Fox demons were one of the few species that were famous for their divine consciousness and were proficient in the art of seduction. The half-demon of the White Fox tribe might also have such an inheritance. He did not dare to check the jade slips rashly, in case he fell into the trap of the White Fox tribe. He sent the jade slips into the space of the spirit pearl for his clone, Bai Sheng, to check. After Bai Sheng checked the jade slips, he did not find anything wrong. The 4 jade slips each recorded the refining method of a Dharma weapon. One of them was a long sword, one was a shield, one was a jade hairpin, and one was a flying Dharma weapon. The long sword and shield were refined with slightly different materials, but there was nothing else. The jade hairpin was a support-type Dharma weapon, but it was required to be able to attack, defend, and assist in cultivation. Its attacking effect was similar to that of a flying sword. Its defensive function was to create a defensive light shield, assist in cultivation, and add on a spirit-gathering function. It was not difficult to have a single function. However, it was more difficult to have 3 functions. The more functions there were, the more tool patterns were required. The jade hairpin was only a few inches long and was not even as thick as a chopstick. One could imagine how difficult it would be to inscribe so many tool inscriptions in such a small space. Moreover, different tool patterns with different functions would interfere with each other. The closer he got, the stronger the interference. Wang Daoyuan was rather excited about the last type of flying Dharma artifact. The legacy of blacksmithing in his hands was relatively ordinary. Even the crafting techniques recorded in the 5 Elements Spiritual Master's experience were not of a high level. After all, the 5 Elements Daoist majored in the art of array formations. He only practiced the art of refining for the convenience of refining array cores. The artifacts recorded in his artifact forging technique were relatively common and simple, and there were very few types. It could be considered as a textbook for third-rank blacksmiths. There was no problem in using it to raise the level of blacksmithing, but in terms of practical application, the textbook was completely insufficient. Lei Yanjinren's refining experience only recorded how to raise one's refining level and did not specifically introduce the refining method of a particular Dharma artifact. The refining legacy given by the Netherworld sect was even worse. It could barely be used as a textbook. Although Wang Daoyuan's refining skills were not low, the types of magic tools that he could refine were still too few, and his refining methods were too simple. This was especially so for tool patterns, which he had mastered were relatively common. Of course, if he knew the principles and combination of these tool patterns, he could study other formation patterns. However, it would take a long time. With reference, he could improve on the foundation of the existing tool patterns, and the efficiency would be much higher. The 4 jade slips that Bai Ying had given him were of great value to him as a reference. This was especially so for the flying Dharma artifact, which was extremely valuable. This flying Dharma artifact was also a boat-type Dharma artifact, but it was different from a flying boat. The core function of a flying boat was achieved by an array formation. This flying Dharma artifact was called the crane feather boat, and its flying function was achieved by the tool patterns and the characteristics of the materials used. Compared to a flying boat, the crane feather boat was extremely small. It was only 5 feet long and 1 foot wide, and its load was also very small. It could only accommodate 3 people at most. The crane feather boat had an advantage over a flying boat, and that was its speed of flight. At its normal speed, it could reach more than 3,000 miles in 2 hours. At full power, it could reach more than 4,000 miles in 2 hours, which was even faster than a flying warship of the same level. Ordinary late-stage Foundation establishment cultivators could only fly less than 3,000 miles in 2 hours. Flying on the crane feather boat consumed much less spiritual power than sword kinesis flight. Moreover, when driving the crane feather boat, one only needed to inject spiritual power into it and did not need to consume spiritual power. It was more suitable for continuous flight. The crane feather boat also had many fatal flaws. Its function was too simple, and it was especially fragile. Although it was an upper-grade Tier 2 Dharma artifact, its strength was weaker than most low-grade Tier 2 Dharma artifacts. In a battle of magical powers, it was a fragile object. An early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator could easily injure it with a casual sword gleam. This Dharma artifact was only suitable for transportation. If it was taken out in battle, the chances of it being destroyed were extremely high. Of course, this crane feather boat still had a lot of room for growth. After studying it thoroughly, he could improve it. For example, he could improve the tool patterns, replace stronger materials, and add some other functions. These were all things that he could work on in the future. The most important thing now was to understand the refining method of the crane feather boat. After seeing the refining method of the crane feather boat, he focused all his attention on the crane feather boat and was not interested in the other 3 Dharma artifacts. It would take too much time for him to refine the crane feather boat alone. It was time to let Bai Sheng out. This shop was the territory of the White Fox tribe. Although there were no surveillance devices in the shop, it was inevitable that there would be people watching. If someone suddenly appeared, it would be hard to explain. To be safe, he changed into the attire of a rogue cultivator and left Wild Goose Market. He found a quiet place and let out his clone, Bai Sheng. After that, the two of them returned to Wild Goose Market's Wu Weapon Workshop and began to study the refining method of the crane feather boat. There were 2 main materials for the crane feather boat: upper-grade Tier 2 crane demon bird's wings and tail feathers, and light cloud wood. Light cloud wood was an upper-grade Tier 2 spiritual wood. In terms of strength, it was probably the weakest among Tier 2 spiritual wood. Of course, light cloud wood was not completely useless. Its biggest advantage was that it was very light. Its density was not much higher than feathers. The reason why the crane feather boat could float in the air was mainly because of the crane feather boat's unique tool patterns. The crane feather boat's buoyancy was not very strong. It also needed to carry people, so it had to reduce the weight of the materials as much as possible. Therefore, light cloud wood was used as the main material. The value of the crane feather boat and light cloud would lay in the characteristics of the materials. Therefore, during the refining process, it was necessary to preserve the characteristics of the materials as much as possible. Smelting and forging were not necessary. They could only remove the impurities in the raw materials and shape the light cloud wood into a suitable shape. These tasks did not require high attainments in refining weapons. With Beiyuan's attainments in refining weapons that were close to upper grade Tier 2, it was not difficult to handle these tasks. Wang Daoyuan's task was to inscribe tool patterns on the light cloud wood and the crane feather boat. It was not difficult to inscribe formation patterns on the light cloud wood, but it was difficult to inscribe formation patterns on the crane feather boat. Each feather was very thin and not very strong. The chisel knife was also very sharp. With a little force, it could cut the feather into pieces. The difficulty of inscribing tool patterns on the crane feather boat could be imagined. Finally, the crane feather boat had to be assembled and placed on the light cloud wood. There were 5 sets of crane feather boat materials sent by Beiyuan. As long as he handed over 1 crane feather boat, he would receive 3,000 spiritual stones as a reward. With the help of Beiyuan's doppelganger, Wang Daoyuan was under much less pressure. He only failed twice. On the 3rd try, he successfully refined a crane feather boat. From beginning to end, it only took slightly more than a month. Chapter 293. The White Fox tribe gave him 5 sets of materials and only asked for a crane feather boat. Naturally, the reward was not high, only 3,000 spirit stones. An upper-grade level 2 magic weapon with special functions was worth more than 10,000 spirit stones. The 2 level 2 blacksmiths spent more than a month and only earned 3,000 spirit stones. It was a big loss. However, the refining method of the crane feather boat and the tool pattern to assist in flight were not something that could be measured with a few thousand spirit stones. He was not in a hurry to refine the remaining 2 sets of materials. The current crane feather boat had too many flaws and it would not be interesting to refine it. It was better to refine it after some improvement. Furthermore, he promised the White Fox tribe to keep it a secret. If he used the crane feather boat outside, he would offend them. Although the White Fox tribe was not a powerful force, it would be easy for them to deal with him. After refining the crane feather boat, the next step was to refine the jasper hairpin. The main material of the jasper hairpin was not rare. Jasper was a common upper-grade level 2 jade material. Its strength was not low, but it was not high either. The other party had more requirements for the functions of the jasper hairpin, but the refining method was already given in the jade slip, so there was no need for him to think about it. The tool pattern was a very basic type. The only valuable thing was the way to deal with the conflict between the tool patterns. With the way to deal with the conflict between the tool patterns, he would be able to give the tool many functions in the future. He spent half a month and only failed once. On his 2nd try, he successfully refined a upper-grade level 2 jasper hairpin. He was given 5 sets of materials and the remaining 3 sets were for him. The reward was 2,000 spirit stones. The shield was the least technical. It was just a hard material. After refining the metal material and forging it into shape, all he had to do was to inscribe the defensive array pattern. He was given 3 sets of materials, but Wang Daoyuan succeeded on his 1st try. He only took 3 days to complete the refinement. The reward was 1,000 spirit stones, which was a big profit. The long sword was called the Autumn Water Sword. It was a water-attributed magic weapon and there was nothing special about the tool pattern. However, water-attributed longswords generally did not have much lethality. Water-attributed and wood-attributed cultivators would not use flying swords as their main magic weapon. This autumn water sword was a fancy job in terms of materials. It completely smelted water-attributed materials, extracted their essence, and smelted them into relatively strong non-attributed metal materials, forging a metal longsword with water-attributed spiritual energy as the main element. Although the lethality of the autumn water sword forged in this way was much weaker than that of a gold fire attribute flying sword, It was much stronger than ordinary water attribute magic tools. This kind of refining method of destroying the main material, extracting its essence, and then injecting it into other materials required a high level of purification of the material. It was often used to refine magic tools of the water and wood attribute. This kind of refining was not considered rare, but Wang Daoyuan's 2 Tier 3 legacy sets did not have it. Refining the autumn water sword could be considered as making up for one of his shortcomings in refining tools. It wasn't too difficult to refine. He used 5 or 6 days and failed once to refine the autumn water sword. There were a total of 3 sets of materials, and he only had 1 set left. The reward was 1,000 spirit stones. The 4 magical tools were all completed in 2.5 months. The reward was 9,000 spirit stones. He did not earn many spirit stones, but the materials and refining methods were very valuable. Wang Daoyuan informed Bai Ying through Fu Cheng to come and collect the magical tools. A day later, Bai Ying came to the workshop with 2 half-demon women who were even prettier than the previous one. Wang Daoyuan handed the 4 magical tools to her. She took them, checked them, and put them in her storage bag. Bai Ying smiled. I didn't expect Wu Daoyu to be so fast in refining weapons. In just 2 months, you've refined 4 magical tools. This is the reward I promised Daoyu. With that, she handed a storage bag to Wang Daoyuan. He took the storage bag and put it away without even looking at it. He smiled. This time, I was able to refine 4 magical tools so quickly because of my friend's help. She had brought 2 half-demon beauties with her because she wanted Bai Sheng. There were definitely people from the White Fox tribe watching the shop. Bai Sheng could not hide from her in the Wu clan's workshop. However, Bai Ying was good at acting. After hearing Wang Daoyuan's words, her eyes lit up and she quickly asked, Is Wu Daoyu's friend here? Can I meet him? Bai Sheng walked out of the workshop. Bai Ying immediately went up to him and asked enthusiastically, May I know Daoyu's name? Do you have a Dao companion? Bai Sheng smiled. I'm Bai Sheng. Greetings, Daoyu. I'm focused on cultivation and have no intention of getting married. Bai Ying looked disappointed. That's a pity. My name is Bai Ying. I have the same surname as Daoyu. We're family. Wang Daoyuan was speechless. Bai Sheng's surname was Bai. The White Fox tribe's surname was Bai because their ancestors were white foxes. Half-demons had the surname Chui. Bai Ying did not give up and continued to attack Bai Sheng. After a long time, Bai Sheng was still unmoved. Bai Ying had no choice but to give up and leave the shop with the 2 half-demon women. Bai Sheng continued to reforge the 7 long swords that he had obtained from killing people. His refining skills were very close to 2nd-tier superior grade. He needed more practice. Wang Daoyuan himself was studying the crane feather boat, trying to improve its refining method. 3 days later, Bai Ying came again. She walked straight into the shop and saw Wang Daoyuan. She smiled. Wu Dao, I'm here to disturb you again. Wang Daoyuan smiled. I'm very grateful that Miss Bai is here to take care of my business. There's no need to disturb me. Bai Ying handed a storage bag to Wang Daoyuan and said solemnly, This is no small matter. Daoyu, please don't tell anyone about it. Wang Daoyuan nodded. Don't worry, Miss Bai. I know the rules. Since I've promised to keep it a secret, I won't tell anyone. After Bai Ying left, Wang Daoyuan opened his storage pouch. Inside, there were 2 gourds, some high-grade tier 2 materials, and a jade slip. Wang Daoyuan took out the jade slip and kept it in the space of the spiritual pearl. He handed it to his clone to check. There was nothing left in the jade slip. The jade slip recorded the refining method of a gourd magic weapon. This magic weapon was called the Demon Subduing Gourd. Using divine sense and spiritual power to activate the gourd, one could subdue demonic beasts. This magic weapon was not strange. If it was south of Mount Huiyen, it would be normal for someone to use this gourd. But this was the north of the mountain, the territory of the demon race. Whoever dared to use this magic weapon would be hunted to death by the demon race. Could it be that the White Fox tribe wanted to cause trouble? The territory of the White Fox tribe was about 10,000 miles northeast of Clear Glass City. It was not far from the periphery of the sky/mountain range. Although the half-demons were neutral, they did not allow outsiders to enter their territory. Therefore, the outside world did not know much about the situation of the White Fox tribe. Maybe the White Fox tribe was threatened by demonic beasts, or maybe they had the same idea as the Wang family and wanted to explore the periphery of the sky/mountain range. This matter had nothing to do with him. The White Fox tribe was more than 5,000 miles north of Mount Huiyin. The Wang family did not intend to go beyond Mount Huiyin and expand to the north of the mountain. No matter how much trouble the White Fox tribe caused, it would not affect the Wang family. He only wanted to do business. Why should he care about the White Fox tribe? However, these two gourds were a pleasant surprise. To refine a weapon, he needed to take out the gourd seeds. Now, he could add a new type of spiritual plant to the space of the spiritual pearl. Moreover, the weapon pattern and technique required to refine the demon-subduing gourd were all things that Wang Daoyuan did not know. He was willing to do such a good thing for free. Moreover, there was a reward of 5,000 spirit stones. Chapter 294. These two gourds were the mystic essence gourd. The grade of the gourd vine would increase with age and could reach middle grade, grade 3 at the highest. Gourds could be refined into many types of dermic weapons, especially an attributeless gourd like the mystic essence gourd. The most common type was to nurture flying swords, flying daggers, and other dermic weapons in the gourd to increase the power of the dermic weapon. There were also gourds that could contain water, fire, poison, fog, and other things. The blazing gourd on Mount Jade Pine had a flame transformation tool pattern inscribed on it and was a common gourd dermic weapon. Any gourd could be used to refine spatial treasures. These two mystic essence gourds were both superior grade, grade 2, and spatial treasures refined directly could only be low-grade spatial treasures on the same level as storage bags. If he could hire a grade 3 weapon refinement master, he could use the smelting technique to refine the autumn water sword. By refining the essence of grade 3 materials and fusing them into the gourd, he could refine a high-grade spatial treasure. Unfortunately, Wang Daoyuan was only a superior grade, grade 2 weapon refinement master. From grade 2 to grade 3, elixir, weapon, and talisman arrays were a huge hurdle and it was difficult to cross it. Grade 3 materials were hard to find, and without sufficient materials to practice, it would be even harder to cross this hurdle. Given his skill in weapon refinement, he could only refine superior grade, grade 2 dermic weapons. A superior grade, grade 2 demon-subduing gourd would have no problem dealing with grade 2 demonic beasts. The method to refine the demon-subduing gourd and the tool pattern on it were clearly recorded in the jade slip. There were 3 types of tool patterns. The first was to suppress the soul. To subdue a demonic beast, one had to first weaken its resistance. A demonic beast's body was strong but its soul was weak. Attacking its soul was the best way to subdue it. The second type was the spatial tool pattern. It was similar to the tool patterns on storage bags and universe rings. After all, the gourd was only so big. To contain a demonic beast, one had to expand the internal space. The spatial tool pattern on the demon-subduing gourd had another special feature. It had to have an extremely strong collecting ability. After all, subduing a demonic beast was not as simple as putting things in storage bags. Even if its soul was suppressed, it would still have some resistance. To store it into the space, one had to have a strong suction force. The third type was to strengthen the tool pattern to increase the strength of the gourd. Demonic beasts that were sucked into the gourd would surely struggle. Since the gourd itself wasn't strong enough, it was only natural that it had to be strengthened through smithing. The gourd was about a foot long, and it wasn't difficult to inscribe 3 types of tool inscriptions on it. Bai Ying's storage pouch contained 2 gourds and a few jade slips, as well as a few superior grade 2 materials. According to the forging method recorded in the jade slip, the essence of these forging materials was to be extracted and fused into the gourd to increase its strength. The spiritual power contained in these 2 gourds was of no attribute, which made them suitable for refining with the essence of other refining materials. The smelting method was not difficult, and Bai Sheng could do it. To refine a magic tool with a gourd, One had to first clean out the gourd pulp and gourd seeds. Ranked spirit plants and spirit beasts would have a much lower reproductive ability. There were only a dozen gourd seeds in the 2 gourds. Wang Daoyuan stored the gourd seeds in the spiritual bead and planted them near the spiritual fire of life. After Bai Sheng fused the essence of several refining materials into the gourd, Wang Daoyuan personally inscribed the tool pattern on the gourd. After the first gourd was refined, there were some serious mistakes when inscribing the tool pattern. He tried his best to salvage it, so it wasn't completely destroyed, but its grade dropped to intermediate grade 2. Intermediate grade 2 demon subduing gourd could be used to subdue intermediate grade 2 demonic beasts, and it was considered a powerful grade 2 magic tool. Intermediate grade 2 magic tool couldn't be handed over, but it could be sold outside for 4,000 to 5,000 spirit stones. Wang Daoyuan adjusted his state and began the second refinement. With the experience from the first refinement, he didn't make any major mistakes in the second refinement. He used 7 days to refine an advanced grade 2 demon subduing gourd. It only took him 20 days to refine 2 magic tools. Although there were no more materials left, the reward of 5,000 spirit stones was not bad. Moreover, he could sell the intermediate grade 2 demon subduing gourd to Bai Ying at the market price for a total of 10,000 spirit stones. He had to admit that he had a certain level of proficiency in alchemy, smithing, and talisman. Earning spirit stones was a piece of cake for him. However, his current situation was special. He was being paid to refine magic tools for the White Fox tribe. He didn't have to consider the source of materials or the sales channel of the magic tools. Most advanced grade 2 weapon refinement masters didn't have such treatment. It was difficult to gather materials for a magic tool in a few months if he relied on purchasing materials himself. Even if he refined a magic tool, it would take some time before he could sell it. After refining the demon subduing gourd, Wang Daoyuan went to greet Bai Ying through Fu Cheng. This time, Bai Ying was faster. She arrived in a hurry after half a day. She didn't bring the half-demon beauty with her this time. She came alone. After entering the shop, Wang Daoyuan closed the door and activated the defense array. Seeing how serious he was, Bai Ying teased, "Wu Dao, aren't you afraid of being misunderstood by others?" Wang Daoyuan smiled. "Miss Bai, if you want others to know that the White Fox tribe is looking for me to refine the demon subduing gourd, I can also close the array formation and the door of the shop." Bai Ying couldn't laugh immediately and cupped her fists. "Wu Daoyu, please don't take offense. I was just joking. Have you refined the magic tool?" Wang Daoyuan took out an advanced grade 2 demon subduing gourd from the weapon refinement room and handed it to Bai Ying. Bai Ying took the gourd and observed it carefully. Daoyu's weapon refinement technique is getting better. There are no obvious flaws on this demon subduing gourd. This is the reward Daoyu deserves. With that said, she handed a storage bag to Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan took the storage bag and hung it on his waist. He asked, "There were some mistakes with the other gourd. In the end, I only managed to refine an intermediate grade 2 demon subduing gourd. I don't dare to use such a magic tool in the northern mountains. Do you want it, Miss Bai?" Bai Ying replied without hesitation, "Of course I want it. I can buy it according to the market price. However, I'll have to check the quality of the item first." Before she finished her sentence, she took out the intermediate grade 2 demon subduing gourd. Bai Ying snatched the demon subduing gourd and observed it carefully. She even injected spirit energy into it to activate it. Since the item had yet to acknowledge an owner, it wouldn't have much of an effect. However, she could tell the grade of the entire magic tool with just a trace of spirit energy fluctuation. Eventually, Bai Ying nodded. "Daoyu is truly capable. To think that you could make up for a major mistake in the inscription of the tool pattern to such an extent. Although this magic tool is of intermediate grade 2, it's made of advanced grade 2 materials. In actual fact, it's stronger than ordinary intermediate grade 2 magic tools. Our White Fox tribe wants to work with Daoyu for a long time, so we naturally won't let Daoyu suffer a loss. This intermediate grade 2 demon subduing gourd will be priced at 6,000 spirit stones. What do you think, Daoyu?" That was a very generous price, and Wang Daoyuan naturally had no objections. Beiyuan took out 60 middle-grade spirit stones from a storage bag and handed them to Wang Daoist. Both gourds were spatial magic tools and couldn't be kept in storage bags. It would be too ostentatious to take them out in the open. She put the 2 gourds into a box and left the Wu clan's weapon workshop with it. Chapter 295. In the following days, Beiyuan did not look for Wang Daoist to refine weapons. He did not idle around and trained Beisheng every day. Because the clone's soul had been severely injured, its original consciousness was erased and the soul had taken over. After all, the soul was not the same as the clone's original soul. No matter how brilliant the secret art was, it could not allow them to merge perfectly. The clone was weaker in anything related to the soul, especially in terms of comprehension. Alchemy, smithing, and talisman arrays required a high level of comprehension. Beisheng's soul was problematic and his comprehension was poor. That was why he could not make a breakthrough in smithing. Wang Daoist gave him dozens of black jade lotus seeds, but there was no change. If his comprehension was not good, then he could use numbers to make up for it. Beisheng's biggest shortcoming now was inscribing weapon patterns. Wang Daoist continued to forge weapon embryos and gave them to Beisheng to inscribe. Of course, these weapon embryos were made of metal. Even if the inscription failed, they could be reforged and there would not be too much loss. Through Fu Cheng's connections, Wang Daoist contacted a few shops that provided spirit charcoal and smithing materials. There were many second-grade smithing materials in the smithing workshop. After 3 months of high-intensity training, Beisheng's success rate of inscribing weapon patterns finally reached 40%. His standard of refining materials and forging had long reached the standard of an upper-grade rank 2 smithing master. Now that he had made up for his shortcoming of inscribing weapon patterns, he naturally became a true upper-grade rank 2 smithing master. Beisheng's smithing skills were good enough, so Wang Daoist did not need to keep an eye on him. He could focus on Wu Yi's clone. Wu Yi was now the steward and knew more about blood shadow. He knew that yin-yang purple jade could not be exchanged with spirit stones. Apart from spirit stones, one also needed the corresponding contribution points. Spirit stones were not a problem. Wang Daoist opened a smithing workshop and secretly sold some elixirs and talismans. It was not a problem for him to earn hundreds of thousands of spirit stones a year. Even if he bought 2 pieces of yin-yang purple jade, it would take him more than 10 years to earn enough spirit stones. However, it was difficult to obtain contribution points. According to Blood Shadow's rules, there was a set of rules for obtaining contribution points. One could not directly use spirit stones to exchange for contribution points. Blood Shadow was an external affairs cultivator. Half of the bounty obtained from killing a bounty target belonged to Blood Shadow, while the other half belonged to the cultivator himself. The number of spirit stones one handed over was the number of contribution points one would receive. Wu Yi had worked hard for decades, but he only had around 100,000 contribution points. The cultivators of the branch needed 700,000 spirit stones and 350,000 contribution points to exchange for the yin-yang purple jade or the purple cloud wood core. In other words, he had to complete the mission and obtain a reward of 700,000 spiritual stones in order to obtain 350,000 contribution points. Apart from that, the Hall Master's approval was required to exchange for the yin-yang purple jade. As a trusted aide that Crimson Fox had nurtured, it wasn't a problem for Wu Yi's clone to obtain the Hall Master's acknowledgement. However, it was too difficult to obtain 350,000 contribution points, which was equivalent to 700,000 contribution points. If he personally went out to do bounty missions, it would take him at least 20 to 30 years to gather enough contribution points. Other than that, there was another shortcut. This shortcut could only be taken by a steward. After the external affairs cultivators under the steward completed a bounty mission, the steward would receive a 5% commission from the contribution points obtained. It didn't mean much to have few cultivators under one's command. However, if there were many cultivators under one's command, the total number would be considerable. Apart from that, every time a cultivator was recruited into Blood Shadow, the steward would also receive a certain amount of contribution points. Recruiting qi refinement cultivators would give him 100 to 500 contribution points. Recruiting foundation establishment cultivators would give him 2,000 to 5,000 contribution points. Therefore, if he wanted to obtain the yin-yang purple jade as soon as possible, he had to do his best to be a steward. Only by recruiting more subordinates could he obtain contribution points faster. Wang Daoyuan was speechless. He had made his clone Wu Yi go undercover in order to obtain the yin-yang purple jade from Blood Shadow. Initially, he was going to take advantage of the situation. However, not only did he not take advantage of the situation, he even recruited cultivators to strengthen Blood Shadow. It was truly touching for him to be a spy to this extent. Blood Shadow could not recruit people openly like ordinary factions. They had to hide their secrets. As such, the difficulty was very high. If he wanted to recruit people without revealing Blood Shadow's secrets, he had to ensure that the people Wu Yi recruited were either willing to join Blood Shadow or die. Killing people would cause a huge commotion, so he had to ensure the success rate of roping them in. This required a deep understanding of itinerant cultivators to know which ones were willing to join Blood Shadow. There was one person who could be used to determine whether a disbanded cultivator was willing to join Blood Shadow, and that was Fu Cheng. This kid had grown up in Guiyuan Market. Ever since he embarked on the path of cultivation, he had been dealing with itinerant cultivators and knew them very well. He could quickly determine which cultivators were willing to join Blood Shadow. Most of the brokers in Guiyuan Market did not have any backing. They only had two sources of income. One was to maintain a cooperative relationship with various shops to attract business for them and receive some commission. The other was to run errands for cultivators who came to Guiyuan Market for the first time. These cultivators could more or less give them some remuneration. These two businesses were not easy to do. It was fine when the situation was stable. However, once the situation was unstable and itinerant cultivators did not dare to enter the market easily, these brokers could only starve. Therefore, the success rate of roping Fu Cheng into Blood Shadow was still very high. Wang Daoyuan was determined to get Fu Cheng. It would be best if he agreed to join Blood Shadow. However, if he did not agree, he could only refine him into a clone. Before making a move, he had to understand Fu Cheng's situation first. If this kid was one of the very few brokers with backing and he rashly tried to rope him in, it would be troublesome. In the next few days, Wang Daoyuan no longer stayed in the weapon workshop. Instead, he disguised himself as an itinerant cultivator and watched Fu Cheng from behind. After 3 days of investigation, he found out that Fu Cheng indeed did not have any backing. Moreover, Fu Cheng was not alone. He had 2 sons. His sons were not old and were only in their teens. One was immortal while the other had a spirit root, but his talent was similar to his. With family, there would be worries, and with worries, there would be weaknesses. After figuring out Fu Cheng's situation, Wang Daoyuan returned to the weapon workshop. The task of roping Fu Cheng into Blood Shadow was handed over to Wu Yi, the manager. In the evening, Wu Yi left the Immortal's welcome house and went to Fu Cheng's house to wait for him. After dark, Fu Cheng returned home and shouted, "Eldest, second, come out and eat." After saying that, he took out 2 bowls of spiritual grains from the storage bag at his waist and placed them on the table in the courtyard. The 2 half-grown children ran out of the house and each picked up a bowl to eat. Wu Yi threw a spirit stone, which happened to land on the table. Fu Cheng protected his sons behind him and cupped his hands. "Senior, may I know which one of you is here? Please give me your orders." Wu Yi's clone walked out of the shadows and said, "I need your help with something. Help me find a place where we can talk." Fu Cheng brought Wu Yi to the Taurus Inn. Wu Yi booked a superior room and set up a soundproof formation. He said, "I'm here because I have a great fortune to give you." Upon hearing this, Fu Cheng turned pale with fright. He immediately knelt down and begged for mercy. "Senior, please spare my life. Junior's cultivation level is low, so I can only make some money by introducing businesses. I can't earn any great fortune." Wu Yi was half persuading and half threatening him. "Even if you don't think for yourself, you have to think for that cultivator son of yours. Don't tell me you want him to be like you and waste his whole life. Your cultivation path is hopeless, but your son is still young. If you agree to help me, your son will have better cultivation techniques and sufficient cultivation resources. It won't be impossible for him to build his foundation in the future. You're a smart person. If you don't agree, you know the consequences. Chapter 296. Fu Qing looked like he was struggling. He wanted to refuse, but he didn't dare. He didn't have any backing, so he couldn't resist the coercion of a foundation establishment cultivator. Besides, his cultivation level was low and he didn't know anything about cultivation. His only value was that he was well informed. The person in front of him wanted him to do things for him, but it was only to help him gather information in Guiyan market. The risk wasn't high, and it wasn't much different from what he was doing now. If he followed the person in front of him, he would at most be implicated and lose the lives of the three of them. As long as the person in front of him didn't fall, the possibility of this happening wasn't high. If he agreed, the risk wouldn't be too high, and he would even get more cultivation resources. If he didn't agree, the three of them would die now. Fu Qing gritted his teeth and made up his mind. He bowed and said, "Junior is willing to follow Senior and go through hell for Senior." Wu Yi said with a smile, "You are indeed a smart person. I won't let my people suffer losses. You don't have the qualifications to officially join the force behind me, and you don't even have the qualifications to know the name of the force. But as long as you can complete the task I give you, joining the force won't be a problem. As for your cultivator son, as long as he cultivates to the peak of qi refinement and contributes enough, he will get the chance to build his foundation. Your mortal son can also live a rich life. What I need you to do is very simple. You just need to help me find some people. These people have good talent and the potential to improve. They desire to improve their cultivation, but they lack resources and don't have a way to earn spirit stones. The best cultivation level is between the late stage of qi refinement and the middle stage of foundation establishment. I believe that with your ability, it won't be hard to find such people. People who had the potential and desire to improve their cultivation, but were extremely lacking in resources, were more likely to take risks. Such people wouldn't be the least concerned about danger. As long as they saw hope, they would be willing to do anything. The success rate of roping in such people was higher. Hearing Wu Yi's words, Fu Qing sighed in relief. He only wanted him to find people and not do anything dangerous. This task didn't conflict with his current job, and there wasn't any danger. He cupped his hands and said, "Senior, although Junior isn't talented, finding people is my specialty. But after Junior finds them, how should I deal with them, and how should I inform Senior?" Wu Yi smiled and said, "You don't need to do anything. Just do what you usually do. You just need to remember the target's whereabouts and situation. When I contact you, just tell me the target's situation. This is a small gift for our first meeting. As long as you work hard for me, your good days are still ahead." Then, he handed a storage pouch to Fu Qing. Fu Qing accepted the storage pouch and bowed. "Thank you for your reward, Senior. I will definitely do my best and not hesitate to go through fire and water." Wu Yi sent him away and continued to stay at the Golden Bull Inn. There were many vice hall masters in Blood Shadow's stronghold, the welcoming Immortal's tower. It was too dangerous to cause trouble there. It was better to do it at the Golden Bull Tavern. Fu Qing left the inn and returned home. He opened the storage bag and saw what was inside. He couldn't believe his eyes. Inside the storage bag were 1,000 spirit stones and 100 essence-gathering pills. Fu Qing relied on running errands to attract business. Under normal circumstances, his monthly income was only 20 to 30 spirit stones. With these spirit stones, he had to feed 3 people and buy cultivation resources. There weren't many spirit stones left. Sometimes it might not be enough. He had never had more than 100 spirit stones in his hands. Now, he actually had 1,000 spirit stones and 100 essence-gathering pills. He didn't even dare to think about having so many resources. Wu Yi had just casually given him so many resources. This made Fu Qing even more reverent of the force behind Wu. A powerful and mysterious force was even more difficult to get rid of, and there wouldn't be a situation where he was implicated. He was even more determined to join this force. As long as he could become an official member, his descendants wouldn't have to run around for a few spirit stones like him in the future. A month later, Wu Yi came to Fu Cheng's house again. Fu Cheng's ability to get things done was indeed not weak. In this month, he had found more than 10 targets that were passable. Among these targets, there were cultivators from the late stage of qi refinement to the mid-stage of foundation establishment. After all, Fu Cheng was only a mid-stage qi refinement cultivator. He wasn't very clear about the situation of foundation establishment cultivators. The situation of several foundation establishment cultivators was relatively simple. Since he didn't know much, the success rate of roping in these foundation establishment cultivators directly wouldn't be too high. He needed to observe for a period of time and figure out their specific situation before slowly roping them in. On the other hand, those late-stage qi refinement cultivators who weren't even 70 years old still had hope of reaching foundation establishment. Their need for resources was even more urgent. Furthermore, these people would be more loyal to him after being nurtured. In the past, Wang Daoyuan wanted to get 1 or 2 pieces of yin-yang purple jade and run away. However, Blood Shadow didn't know what was good for them. They set these **T rules and caused him to have to help them expand their strength in order to obtain yin-yang purple jade. It would be a pity if he only obtained 2 pieces of yin-yang purple jade after spending so much effort. He had to make sure that he did not expose his true form and take advantage of Blood Shadow. He even had to cultivate a force that was loyal to him within Blood Shadow. If possible, he had to turn Blood Shadow into a stable channel for him to obtain yin-yang purple jade. This was more difficult. At the very least, he had to deal with Scarlet Fox. Without the cooperation of a direct descendant of Blood Shadow, he couldn't even think about it. It was better to choose a late-stage qi refinement cultivator for the first time to rope in Blood Shadow. Among the candidates that Fu Cheng had provided, one was especially suitable. His name was Hu Jing, and he was an itinerant cultivator. He was about 60 years old and was at level 9 qi refinement. He was not proficient in the arts of cultivation and mainly relied on finding spirit herbs to earn resources. Under such circumstances, it was clear that this person was not weak to be able to reach level 9 qi refinement. He was only 10 years away from his last chance to reach foundation establishment at 70 years old. Under such circumstances, there was still hope for him to reach foundation establishment. However, for itinerant cultivators who did not have any skills, the chances were extremely slim. He might know that his chances were slim, but he was unwilling to give up. According to Fu Cheng's intelligence, Hu Jing still frequently entered the mountains to search for spirit herbs and had no intention of giving up. People who realized that their chances were slim but were unwilling were the best to rope in. It was like a drowning person who would grab onto a straw with all his might. Wu Yi asked Fu Cheng to bring him to the Golden Bull Inn. After bringing him to Wu Yi's room, Fu Cheng bade farewell and left. Hu Jing cupped his fists towards Wu Yi and said, "May I know why you've summoned me here, senior?" Wu Yi smiled and asked, "May I know if my little friend wants to reach foundation establishment?" Hearing this, Hu Jing was stunned and said with a bitter smile, "Which qi refinement cultivator doesn't want to reach foundation establishment? It's just that how many people can successfully reach foundation establishment with their own abilities?" Wu Yi smiled and said, "I can give you a chance, but whether or not you can succeed will depend on your own performance. I don't lack foundation establishment pills, but foundation establishment pills have to be given to useful people." Hearing this, Hu Jing's eyes lit up and he bowed solemnly, "If senior can give me the chance to reach foundation establishment, I'm willing to be an ox or a horse to repay senior's great kindness." Wu Yi was secretly delighted. This kind of person was indeed easy to rope in. With his words, the matter of recruitment could be considered half completed. The rest would depend on how bold this brat was. He said unhurriedly, "Help me do some work that licks blood from the edge of the blade. Earning spirit stones is not a problem. As long as you can show your worth, even if you can't gather enough spirit stones to buy a foundation establishment pill by the time you're 70 years old, I can still give you one." Hu Jing hesitated for a moment. Finally, his eyes shone with determination and he said, "No matter how dangerous it is, I'm willing." Chapter 297. Wu Yi was secretly delighted. It was a success. He handed a jade scroll to Hu Jing and said, "Follow the instructions inside. If you do a good job, you can join the force behind me and become my direct subordinate." Hu Jing took the jade scroll and used his divine sense to check it. After a while, Hu Jing cupped his hands and asked, "Senior, how should we deal with this person after killing him?" Wu Yi nodded in satisfaction. This was a smart person. He was not greedy for spirit stones. He was worth nurturing. He smiled and said, "It's good that you can think this way. However, you don't have to worry about anything else. Just follow the instructions in the Jade Scroll and arrive at the designated place at the designated time. Leave after killing him. I'll arrange for people to take care of this. My subordinates don't have to worry about these trivial matters. They just have to focus on killing." Hu Jing nodded heavily, bowed, and left the place. The person he wanted to assassinate was the intelligence chief of the Red-Beard Bandits. After Wu Yi defeated the underworld sect's caravan, the situation in Shanbei was unstable. If he provoked the underworld sect or the Beiyuan sword sect now, a war might break out. Apart from these two parties, the small human forces in Shanbei already had a hard time. After all, they were the pioneers of the human race. Everyone who expanded the living space for the human race was worthy of respect. Wang Daoist did not have time to help them, but he did not want to take advantage of them either. If he could not touch the human forces, he could not touch the half-demon forces either. Most of them were neutral. If he provoked them, he would be causing trouble for the human race in Shanbei. If he provoked the demons, it would be even riskier. These people were not to be trifled with. If he provoked them, another war between the human race and the demon race might break out. In the entire Shanbei, the only people he could touch were the itinerant cultivators and the Red-Beard Bandits. The itinerant cultivators did not have high bounties. The best targets were the Red-Beard Bandits. The Red-Beard Bandits were hated by everyone in Shanbei and Shanbei. The main targets of the Red-Beard Bandits were the small human forces and the weak half-demon tribes. They rarely touched the demon race and the large sections. Wang Daoist had no emotional pressure to find trouble with the Red-Beard Bandits. Moreover, these people had caused too much trouble. Many forces had put a bounty on their heads. With all kinds of bounties added up, a small qi condensation leader was worth thousands of spirit stones. Hu Jing's target was a small leader in charge of intelligence. In terms of status, he could be said to be in the top 3 under the foundation building realm. With a bounty of 5,000 spirit stones, his value was comparable to that of an ordinary foundation building cultivator. The Red-Beard Bandits had planted many spies in the returning Wild Goose City Square. The head of the intelligence network was also stationed in the city square for a long period of time to gather information about the various factions. Small matters could be sent through jade talismans, but Zifu disciples could intercept low-grade jade talismans. Therefore, whenever there was important information, the intelligence chief would personally run to Hui Yen Mountain to pass on the message. Blood Shadow had bribed a few of the Red-Beard Bandit spies and found out that the Red-Beard Bandits had recently obtained a few important pieces of information. The head of the intelligence agency was planning to personally report the situation, so it was a good opportunity to intercept and kill them. In the past, Blood Shadow didn't have the confidence to deal with the Crimson Beard Bandits. Firstly, it was because of the issue of strength. Zifu disciples couldn't be easily dealt with, and 3 late-stage Foundation establishment stewards added together weren't enough for the Crimson Beard Bandits. Secondly, he wanted to continue rearing pigs. An assassin organization like Blood Shadow would only have more business when the situation was unstable. When the situation was calm and everyone was busy developing, who would put out a bounty for killing? The Red-Beard Bandits were a troublemaker. Only when the situation was unstable would Blood Shadow have more business. Scarlet Fox didn't want to take down the Red-Beard Bandits, but he didn't forbid his subordinates from attacking them either. Others didn't have the motivation or ability to kill the Red-Beard Bandits, but Wang Daoist did. If he wanted to quickly gather 350,000 contribution points, the best goal was to wipe out the entire Redbeard bandits. Just the Redbeard bandits alone were worth 600,000 spirit stones. In addition to the 5 foundation establishment leaders, this was more than the price of a yin-yang purple jade. At present, Wang Daoyuan didn't have much of a chance of winning against just one of the Redbeard bandits, let alone 2 of them working together. However, he was only at the 7th stage of foundation establishment. Once his cultivation reached the 9th stage, it wouldn't be a big problem. During this period of time, he would refine a few late-stage foundation establishment clones. When the time came, he would bring the clones to cripple the Redbeard bandits and let Wu Yi pick up the heads. Then he would have a yin-yang purple jade. He estimated that it would take more than 10 years for his cultivation to reach the 9th stage of foundation establishment. By then, Wu Yi's subordinates should have a certain scale. The contribution points that he had accumulated over 10 years wouldn't be too far away from a yin-yang purple jade. After taking down the Redbeard bandits, he would have 2 yin-yang purple jades. 3 days later, Hu Jing came to Wu Yi's room at the Taoist Tavern and took out a head from his storage bag. It was the head of the Redbeard bandits' intelligence leader. After checking it, Wu Yi put away the head and handed him 2,500 spirit stones. He said, "According to the rules of the organization behind me, after completing a bounty mission, the executor will receive half of the reward and the other half will belong to the organization. I'll give you contribution points for handing over the bounty. Not only do you need spirit stones to purchase important resources like foundation establishment pills from the organization, but you also need contribution points. You have 2,500 contribution points now. According to the rules, I can take 5% of the contribution points. However, this is your first mission, so I won't take any. Stay here and don't move around. I'll go and report your information. When the higher-ups issue your command token, you'll be considered an official member of the organization." After he finished speaking, he left the Taoist Tavern and took a few detours before returning to the Welcome Immortals Tower to meet Scarlet Fox. When he arrived at Scarlet Fox's cave, he handed the head of the Redbeard bandits' leader to Scarlet Fox and reported Hu Jing's situation. Scarlet Fox asked, "You want to make a move on the Redbeard bandits?" Wu Yi smiled and said, "If I want to recruit people, I must have enough missions for them to complete. The Netherworld sect and Guiyuan Sword sect can't be provoked anymore. Otherwise, a war might break out and it won't be good for our business. However, provoking the Redbeard bandits is different. No matter how much we provoke them, it won't break out into a war. After killing a few small leaders, they'll definitely provoke a few large and medium-sized organizations to vent their anger. If the situation is a little more chaotic, our business will be better and we can even increase their bounty. You can't just raise pigs without eating meat. It's not bad to take out 1 or 2 pigs to eat meat occasionally." Scarlet Fox pondered for a moment and said, "Your idea is good. It's not worth it to let the Redbeard bandits loose. It's not bad to kill a few small leaders occasionally. You have a good eye. This Hu Jing is a promising talent." After she finished speaking, she took out a jade slip and used her divine sense to inscribe something on it. After a few minutes, she handed the jade slip to Wu Yi and said, "Give the jade slip to Green Wolf." Green Wolf was Scarlet Fox's direct subordinate. He was in charge of managing the personnel of the Shanbei branch and was in charge of managing the information of all branch members. New members had to report to him and he would issue a member token. Wu Yi took the jade slip and left the cave to look for Green Wolf. Green Wolf's cultivation was at the 5th layer of foundation building. He basically didn't move around outside, so most assassins had never seen him before. Wu Yi handed the jade slip to him. He didn't say anything and took the jade slip to examine it with his divine sense. Then he took out a beast skin book. On the beast skin book was written 4th Manager. On the 3rd page, he branded the information on the jade slip. Then, he took out a blood shadow token and wrote something on the back of the token. 15 minutes later, he handed the token to Wu and said, "Manager Wu, from now on, this Hu Jing is an outer member of our branch." Chapter 298. Wu Yi took the token and left the underground stronghold, heading to the Taurus Inn. When he arrived at his previous room, Hu Jing was still waiting there. Seeing Wu Yi come in, Hu Jing immediately cupped his hands and said, "Greetings, senior." Wu Yi smiled and said, "You are now my direct subordinate." Hu Jing's face was full of joy and was about to bow. Wu Yi said seriously, "Don't be anxious. Before that, I need to tell you the rules. First, you are not allowed to leak the name of the organization. Once it is leaked, the person who leaked it and the person who knows it will die. If you meet cultivators who know the existence of the organization, kill them if you can, and report to me if you can't. Second, you don't need to contact any clients, and you don't need to accept any bounty missions outside. All your missions will be given to you by me. If you discover anything, report it to me. You are now an outer member, so this is all you need to know. After you reach Foundation establishment and become an inner member, you will be qualified to know more. Can you do these two things?" Hu Jing bowed and said, "I can do it." Wu Yi smiled with satisfaction. "Good, it's good that you can do it. From now on, you are the subordinate of the fourth steward of the Blood Shadow Mountain's northern branch. I am the fourth steward, your immediate superior." Then he gave him a black iron token and said, "This is your token. Just drip a drop of blood on it and it will recognize you as its master. In the future, you don't need to look for me if you need anything. You can contact me through the token." Hu Jing bowed and said, "Greetings, steward." Wu Yi nodded and left the Taurus Inn. For safety's sake, he would change places and inns before continuing to recruit people. Wu Yi was already on the right track, and the Wu clan's equipment forging workshop was also overseen by Bai Sheng. Wang Daoyuan was free now, and it was time to focus on improving his cultivation. Bai Ying of the White Fox tribe would come to the equipment forging workshop about every 4 or 5 months to ask Wang Daoyuan and Bai Sheng to help her forge. The main material of the refining materials she sent was no longer the golden jade spirit plant, but the bones of demonic beasts. Based on these demon beast bones, Wang Daoyuan could tell that it was a wolf-type demon beast, but he couldn't tell its specific species. It seemed that the White Fox tribe was indeed attacking the demons. As a human, they naturally didn't mind watching the conflict between the demon race and the half-demon race. The more intense the fight, the better. Only when the demons and half-demons were crippled could the human race develop and grow stronger in the north of the mountain. There was no need for Wang Daoyuan to worry about refining weapons. Using demonic beast bones to refine artifacts, that was Bai Sheng's specialty. Bai Sheng's divine sense wasn't enough to complete the tool inscriptions on his own, so Wang Daoyuan had to do it personally. As a result, Wang Daoyuan had a lot of free time to cultivate in seclusion. 7 years later, he reached the 8th level of Foundation establishment. With his current abilities, he would not be at a disadvantage against most peak Foundation establishment cultivators. Bai Sheng had also achieved remarkable results in the past few years. He had earned more than 100,000 spirit stones. Wang Daoyuan also had more than 400,000 spirit stones in his hands. Wu Yi was not idle either. With Fu Cheng's help, the success rate of roping in rogue cultivators was very high. After 7 years, he already had more than 20 late-stage Qi refinement cultivators, 5 early-stage Foundation establishment cultivators and 1 mid-stage Foundation establishment cultivator under him. Even though there was still a gap between him and the other 3 stewards, the speed at which he was expanding his strength was way too fast. The other 3 stewards only had a dozen or so Foundation establishment cultivators and 100 or so Qi refinement cultivators under them after decades of hard work. However, Wu Yi only took a few years to have a third of their strength. The Scarlet Fox relied on Wu even more and gave him priority when the Shanbei branch received easy missions. Wu Yi had accumulated close to 100,000 contribution points in the past few years and was one step closer to redeeming the Yin-Yang Purple Jade. His cultivation had also increased slightly and was not far from Foundation Establishment Level 9. The Scarlet Beard Bandits were disgusted as well. No one touched Foundation Establishment cultivators when they went out, but Qi refinement cultivators were ambushed the moment they left the mountain. The Scarlet Beard Bandits had set up many ambushes but to no avail. The Qi refinement cultivators were all in danger and did not dare to leave the mountain. In order to boost their morale, the Scarlet Beard Bandits had mobilized many times to attack the small half-demon tribes and weak demons. The effect was very obvious. The Shanbei branch was in a state of panic and the bounty for the Scarlet Beard Bandits had increased by a lot. The bounty for the Scarlet Beard Bandits had also increased to 400,000 spirit stones. The Scarlet Beard Bandits were already busy enough. In order to prevent them from going crazy, it was time to change targets. One could not only catch one sheep, it would be a huge loss if the sheep was killed. Coincidentally, the conflict between the Beiyuan sword sect and the underworld sect had subsided. It was time to provoke them so that they would not be idle. Wang Daoyuan did not need to worry about the Scarlet Beard Bandits and the weapon workshop. His strength was below the Violet Palace realm and it was not a problem for him to stay alive. It was time to go out and cause trouble. Wang Daoyuan still had a huge shortcoming, which was that he was not fast enough to escape. Although the cloud mist escape was brilliant and was very suitable for dodging ambushes in battle, it was not suitable for long-distance escape. Even in the river, his speed could not be compared to cultivators of the same level. In order to stay alive, he had to have a reliable escape method. It was not good for spirit beasts to appear in the Shanbei branch, and he did not have a better escape method. The only reliable method was to rely on magic tools. He had the method and materials to refine the crane feather boat, but the crane feather boat was too weak. In the past few years, he had been thinking about how to improve the crane feather boat. The two materials for the crane feather boat were not good enough for him as they were too weak. He planned to use the golden jade peach wood to refine a flying magic tool similar to the crane feather boat. He did not have to worry about the buoyancy as he had a suitable solution. After some simple tests, he discovered that the aerodynamic principles from his previous life also existed in this world. Of course, his understanding of this principle in his previous life was limited to junior high school physics. He did not understand any more advanced knowledge. Simply put, if an object had a fast airflow above it and a slow airflow below it, the pressure below it would be greater than the airflow above it. The object would be forced upwards. As long as the force was strong enough, the object would be able to fly. The wings of airplanes and birds were raised at the top and flat or concave at the bottom. This caused the airflow above it to be faster than the airflow below it. The wings of airplanes and birds would be lifted upwards. If a flying magic tool was added with wings, regardless of whether it was a bird's wings or an airplane's wings, it would be able to generate lift during flight. This way, there would be no need for crane feathers which were naturally born with the ability to float. Furthermore, the main material would not be light cloud wood. He only knew the basic principle, but did not know how to calculate the amount of lift. He could only slowly experiment. He wouldn't do experiments himself. With the time flow in the spirit orb, it would be foolish of him to do experiments outside of the spirit orb. He threw Bai Sheng into the spirit pearl space and let him research the most suitable shape for the flying magic tool. There was no need to change the tool pattern. The crane feather boat's tool pattern had to be changed a little, and the tool pattern to increase the strength was more or less enough. Every mature magic tool was created through the painstaking efforts of countless tool refinement masters. The shape, material, and tool pattern of the magic tool were all compatible with each other to achieve a balance. If he wanted to make a big change, he would have to put in a lot of effort. However, with the time flow 40 times faster and the tool refinement master's clone, Wang Daoyuan could still afford to play with it. Moreover, he did not need the magic tool to be perfect. As long as it could fly faster than all Foundation establishment cultivators and not be easily destroyed, it would be fine. Chapter 299. After that, Wang Daoyuan replaced Bai Sheng to look after the Wu clan's equipment forging workshop. In the past 7 years, Bai Sheng had made enough magic weapons. There were still more than 30 magic weapons left in the shop. For the time being, there was no need to replenish the stock. He only needed to take orders for magic weapons. Currently, Bai Ying was the only one who came to the shop to order magic weapons. If she did not come, there would be no one else. Wang Daoyuan simply meditated and cultivated in the shop. If anyone came, he would greet them. If no one came, he would focus on improving his cultivation level. Bai Ying came again midway and brought some wolf bones. She asked him to help her make a few flying swords. The flying swords were ordinary second-grade magic weapons. She did not give him the method of making them. She only mentioned some simple requirements. Using demonic beast bones to make weapons, the two processes of forging and refining were basically skipped. He just used the smelting method to fuse some metal essence into the wolf bones to increase their strength. In a month, Wang Daoyuan made 5 magic weapons and gave them to Bai Ying. Bai Ying only gave him a total of 7 sets of materials and asked him to make 2 flying swords. The reward was 5,000 spirit stones. Wang Daoyuan made 5 magic weapons and sold 3 to Bai Ying at the market price. In total, he received more than 30,000 spirit stones. Half a year later, Bai Sheng stayed in the space of the spiritual pearl for 20 years and finally made a flying magic weapon. Because it was imitating the formation pattern of the crane feather boat, it took less time. If one were to create a magic tool from scratch, it would take at least 100 years to do so. This magic weapon did not have the shape of a flying boat at all. It looked more like an eagle with wings in the shape of an eagle's wings. The entire flying magic weapon was like an eagle catching prey on the ground. Its wings were half folded and it swooped down. This was also to increase its speed. Its length, including the tail, was 8 feet long. The tail was 2 feet long. Excluding the wings, it was 3.5 feet wide. Because the wings were half folded, the wingspan was only 7.5 feet wide. The proportions of the body were not exactly based on eagle demonic beasts. Some adjustments were made. Bai Sheng had already engraved the pattern of the crane feather boat on it. In addition, he had also engraved a pattern to increase its strength. In order to deceive the public, he even painted the entire artifact into a dark color that was commonly seen in eagle-type demon birds. Because it looked like an eagle, Wang Daoyuan named it Flying Kite. The space in the spiritual bead was still too small to be used to test the speed of the kite. He could only estimate its flying speed. At normal speeds, it could reach a speed of slightly more than 3,000 miles per hour. At full power, its speed could reach about 4,000 miles per hour. If he could reach this estimated speed, he would be able to surpass the maximum speed of a Foundation establishment cultivator's sword kinesis flight, which would be considered to have achieved his goal. Because it had just been researched and hadn't been deeply improved, the consumption of spiritual energy was much greater than that of the crane feather boat. When riding a flying kite, the consumption of spiritual power was about the same as when riding a flying sword. Because it was faster than flying on the sword, the consumption of spiritual energy was more cost-effective. As for the load capacity, the flying kite could carry 2 people at most. In other aspects, it was similar to the crane feather boat from before. He only needed to use spiritual power to drive the kite to fly, and he only needed to use the power of his divine sense to control the direction of flight. This was much better than sword kinesis flight. The one that Bai Sheng took out was only an experimental product. The pattern on it had been improved a lot, but there were also many problems left. If he used it directly, it would be easy for problems to arise. To be safe, it was better to refine another one. After using a month's time, Wang Daoyuan refined a new flying kite. Because his divine sense cultivation was stronger than Bai Sheng's, his standard in the area of pattern was much higher, and there were fewer flaws. The strength of the flying kite that he personally refined could barely reach the level of a second-tier high-grade artifact. It was definitely much weaker than a second-tier high-grade defensive artifact, but compared to other types of artifacts, it wasn't much worse. Even a peak Foundation establishment cultivator wouldn't be able to easily destroy a flying kite. Unfortunately, he didn't have any wind attribute materials. Otherwise, he could use the smelting method to extract the essence of the wind attribute materials and merge them into the wings of the kite. He could even directly use wind attribute materials to refine the wings, which should increase the speed by quite a bit. Moreover, the main material of this flying kite was only golden jade peach wood, which was too simple. If he could use soft materials on the wings, he could even change the width of the wings. Just like some of the fighter jets in his previous life, when taking off, the wings would stretch to the maximum to increase the lift and carry more people. When escaping, the wings would be half retracted to increase the speed. These were all areas of improvement in the future. Now that he didn't have so many materials on hand, it was already very good to be able to reach the current level. Wang Daoyuan was only a second-tier high-grade artifact refiner now. When his artifact refinement reached the third tier, the flying kite speed should increase by a lot if he improved it. After dealing with the flying boat, he left his clone, Bai Sheng, in the Wu clan's equipment forging workshop to continue earning spirit stones. He left the Guiyan market and went out to cause trouble. His destination was the Mirror Treasure Lake Oasis, which was thousands of miles north of the Guiyan market. That old fellow, Qinji, was very likely hiding in the Mirror Treasure Lake Oasis. To Wang Daoyuan, that bastard was always a hidden danger. He used Bloodshadow's intelligence system, but he didn't find anyone in Shanbei who had established a purple palace in the past few years. Therefore, Qinji should still be a peak foundation establishment cultivator. With Wang Daoyuan's current methods, he could defeat most peak foundation establishment cultivators. Qinji didn't need to think too much about the refined corpses and Dharma artifacts that he had inherited from the 10,000 Corpse spiritual master. A peak foundation establishment cultivator like him couldn't activate the Dharma artifacts left behind by a golden core cultivator. Even if Qinji could barely activate some third-tier low-grade Dharma artifacts, he couldn't exert much power. Against a powerful second-tier high-grade Dharma artifact, he couldn't crush it. Even if he couldn't defeat it, didn't he still have the flying kite? He could temporarily avoid it and rely on his speed advantage to contend with it. No matter how strong a foundation establishment cultivator was, he wasn't a Purple Palace cultivator. This was a qualitative difference. A foundation establishment cultivator couldn't activate a third-tier Dharma artifact for a long time. As for the refined corpses, Qinji didn't dare to touch them at all. Refined corpses had a tendency to rebel against their masters. The more powerful they were, the higher the probability of them rebelling. If a foundation establishment cultivator dared to command a golden core refined corpse, he would definitely be torn apart alive. Even if Qinji had refined corpses, they were newly refined after receiving the inheritance. The core inheritance of the myriad corpse Daoist was in his hands. Even if Qinji obtained some corpse refining techniques, he wouldn't be that strong. Not to mention, the Netherworld Sex Foundation establishment cultivator had caused a lot of trouble in the Mirror Treasured Lake. He should have clashed with Qinji and consumed a lot of his strength. Furthermore, he had the Wutu Divine Lightning. Dealing with second-tier refined corpses wouldn't be a problem. After leaving the returning Wild Goose Market, he traveled north for more than 500 kilometers and found a secluded place. He summoned the flying kite and tested its speed. After flying for 2 hours, he had traveled 3,500 kilometers. The limit of a peak foundation establishment cultivator's flying speed was 3,500 kilometers in 2 hours. Wang Daoyuan wanted to test the limit of speed. He increased the input of spiritual power and flew north. The flying kite speed also increased rapidly. When it reached 3,500 kilometers in 2 hours, the flying kite began to tremble violently. He didn't dare to continue increasing his speed. Instead, he slowly slowed down. He let out a long sigh. It wasn't easy to improve a flying Dharma artifact. Bai Sheng's clone had spent 20 years, but there were still hidden problems. Soon after, he controlled the flying kite and maintained its speed at 3,400 kilometers in 2 hours. After flying for several thousand kilometers, there were no signs of instability. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.